Hi, Fred. How are you?
Doris, long time no see.
Yes.
How are you?
All right. We were in the other meeting, so
Ah, did you have a meeting before this?
yes,
What was before this one? Oh, did you have the executive session?
correct.
I got you with Denise.
Correct. Yes,
All right,
Denise
gotcha.
Shern. Thank you for waiting.
Hey, Doris.
Hi, Lily. How are you?
Good. I apologize.
Don't worry.
I'm
We're
so-
I'm just logging in. We just adjourned the executive session, so we are logging into the regular meeting.
All right. See if that's any better.
Hi, Doris.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Hi, Ed.
Hi Doris, how are you? Brian,
I'm
how are
doing
you?
well, thank you.
Good. How are you? Oh, hi, Lily.
Oh, hold on. Hey,
Brian,
guys.
thank you for all your help.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Hey, Fred.
Now a neighbor.
Hey, guys.
You- Of yourself.
Yeah.
Hi, Kate. There you go.
Doris, can you see,
Hi, Marianne. Yes,
I see Kate, I see
yes.
Fred.
Hi, Mary Ann.
Hi, Lily.
I apologize for missing that.
That's okay. Don't worry. Herb was having a little trouble getting in.
I don't see him yet. Okay, wait, hold on. John Parker is logging in.
Oh. Do you have it close at hand? I sent him what I thought was the link off of the website, but Herb is having problems. Can you, is that
Sure.
easy enough for you to send
Yes.
it, Doris?
Yes, I'll send it
Okay.
right now.
And you're sending it through email?
Yes. I'm doing it right now.
And has Will Sharp surfaced?
Yes, I thought hold on. I don't see him. I don't see him. I don't see Will. Marianne,
I'm gonna text him.
okay. Okay, Herb is logging in right now.
Thank you, Doris. Sorry about that.
That's all right. You're welcome.
You're not the last one.
I have a hard time keeping all my mails filed properly. It's just like, it's so disorganized. I have to do something about that.
It's hard to keep track of all of it.
I should have a way of keeping things more correctly filed, but I'm working on it. I'm going to try to change. I'm going to become a better person.
You know, sometimes I just fall back on going to the village website and going to the actual calendar that they have there,
Oh, and the Zoom is in there?
and the Zoom is in there.
Never thought of that
Oh,
one.
What?
wow.
Yeah. So there's more than one path here to victory.
All right.
Well, it is 5:04. Maybe we can start slowly while we wait for Will.
Okay, I'm just, I'll
should
resend
there.
the zinc information again
To Will? Okay.
to Will, okay?
All right. All right, so it is April 1st, April Fool's Day, Sag Harbor Village Harbor Committee. We have a meeting here. So far, we have in attendance, we have Lily Feld, John Parker, Herb Sambal, and Kate Plum. Will Sharp, I'm sure, will be joining us shortly. Did I mention John Parker?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So can we have the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes,
Please, Doris?
sure. Give me one minute. I'll get that up. Okay, I'm going to share the screen.
Nice.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of the
of the United States of America
And to
and
the
to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
One
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
And
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
All right.
Okay.
So I think the first thing we want to do is see if there's anybody who's come from the public who would like to speak. Do you see any hands?
I am looking for the hands right now. I do not see. Okay, no hands.
Okay.
I just- Marianne, I just want to let you know Chick Voorhees is logging in. Oh, there he is. There you go. Hi, Chick.
Hi, sorry I'm late, guys.
Okay.
A little trouble with technology.
Yeah, Will is still dealing with technology. But I think we can go ahead. The first thing I think we want to do is, seeing that last week we caught up an enormous amount in terms of reviewing our minutes.
Correct.
Does anybody have any comments on the minutes that we have here from March 4th?
I wanted to comment that my notation about 29 Harding Terrace and how that the outflow of Little Northwest Creek was shown running through their property, that wasn't mentioned. And a questionable survey.
Okay, Doris, you can make a
Yes.
notation on that.
I'm making a note of that.
Okay.
Thanks, Doris.
You're welcome, Lindley.
John, I do appreciate what you've done here. I think it's really given much more body to the minutes. So thank you for that effort. And Doris too.
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, now that we're caught up, it was when we started out behind, there was a problem.
Okay. So with that one change, does anybody have any other issues or should we take a vote to accept these minutes? Any other? I guess not. Okay, can I have a motion to accept the minutes from March 4th, please?
I so move.
Thank you, Herb. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Lily. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So moving on, we have a decision here. We asked Chick Voorhees to draw up a decision for 59 John Street. Would you like to just summarize some highlights, Chick, here?
Sure. Doris, if you want to allow me to share my screen, I can put the vision up.
Yes, okay. You're ready, Chick.
So this is the wetland special permit for 59 John. We had much discussion on this. This had the former garage that was demolished some years ago. The house is as far east as possible, away from the wetland area, which is to the west, including a formerly connected tidal pond. And you authorized me to prepare a decision at the March meeting. So this identifies the proposed project, which is the construction of a home, the driveway, sanitary system, which is an IA system. It has an extensive landscape planting buffer to the west where there's currently lawn. We worked extensively with the applicant to prepare that plan through the committee and through our review. And basically the findings indicate that it is consistent with the wetland permit requirements under chapter 285-9 and that it is environmentally beneficial by virtue of the new planting areas, the IA system, the house setback, the fact that the driveway really can't be located farther away, but we did acknowledge that, and it is a pervious driveway. It is a type 2 action under seeker. It is consistent with the LWRP. We have the standard conditions, and we have identified the plans that are accompanying the application. So I think we're all familiar with it. If there's any questions, I'm here. And this is before you for your consideration of adoption.
Any questions by members of the Harbor Committee? Okay. May I have a motion to approve this decision as written? Don't be shy.
I'll move.
Thank you.
I'll
A
second.
please. Thank you, Lily. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are going to move on to continued public hearings. Doris, I did get a text from Will, and he said that the link that was sent was for the previous meeting that we just closed. I directed him to the calendar, but are you confident the link you sent him was the correct one?
I can forward him the one I just received.
Okay.
I'm forwarding it also.
Which I just did.
Oh, good job.
He may not open it if he sees it's for me, but let's see.
Yeah, I wouldn't if I were you, no.
I know, I get that a lot.
Oh, there he is.
I'm here.
Will, hi. Great. So we have moved through the minutes, we have moved through the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have moved through approving the decision that Chick Voorhees wrote up about 59 John Street. So we're now ready to move on to public hearings, continued public hearings, and the first on the agenda is 12 Green Street. Is there somebody here to speak for the application?
I am. Good evening, members of the board. Brian DeSessa, 2463 Main Street, Suite 7, Bridgehampton, New York, attorney for the applicant. Doris, if Mickey Benson would be able to screen share, but we're going to turn this over in a second. But since we were here 2 months ago, we heard the board's comments. We got the diagram from you, Mary Ann. We went back and tried to see what we can do to be responsive to what the board said. And what we did, you see in our submissions, is that we reduced the size of the proposed addition. And in reducing the size of the proposed addition by a little over 16%, we were able to now show you by the papers submitted that the proposed house with the addition is completely outside the 50-foot encroachment from wetlands. It is farther away from the 10-foot contour or bluff line, and it is less inside of the 75-foot setback. So a positive on all fronts for the 3 regulated lines that the board was concerned with last time. So the proposed square footage of the existing house and addition after the shift and the reduction in size now nets out to a reduction of square footage inside of all of those setbacks.
Well, it's not within the 75-foot setback.
It is less inside of the 75-foot setback is what I said.
Okay, it's less than, but it's still encroaching upon the 75-foot setback, correct?
The existing house, yeah, we can't move the house outside 75 feet.
When you mentioned that you looked at the diagram,
Yep, and-
oh, the one you have up there? Okay.
We're going to talk about that in 1 second. Yep, we did that. So, but first to how we got there, I'm just going to have the homeowner who's here with us, Mark, just speak a little bit, and then Mickey Benson's going to explain with your diagram, Mary Ann, and why that didn't work and what we were able to do to work toward the goals of the chapter.
So Brian, since we met 2 months ago, we took that very kind of feeble, was in the right direction, but we went and we did a more sophisticated drawing of that, showing how the house could be fit, the original house could be fit in with a very small incursion into the 75 feet. You tell me when we should be looking at that. We can put that on the screen as well. I don't
I'm confused. Who did that?
I went and hired somebody.
Who?
Is that relevant?
It is.
Fred?
You have to tell, I mean, if you went and hired and commissioned a study on behalf of the village, we are entitled to that.
Fine, I'm just trying to remember if I even know the name of the person who did it, but it is an engineer, and we will certainly come forward with that. Chick, I think you have it on your computer, don't you?
I am able to illustrate it if you would like me to put that up.
Well, I don't know whether or not he wants to see that. He was asking who the person was. And
I'm sure we're going to discuss it. I'd allow our Mark to speak and our team to present, and then if you have something that you commissioned, we can discuss that.
I guess I just, I don't want to get wound up in looking at something that I did 4 months ago, and it's really quite crude. And I recognize that, and you were very disdainful of it, rightfully so. So I thought if I were going to continue along that line of thinking, that I needed to polish it up. And we also found that there were some different rules about, the sanitary system. So that's what we have to discuss as well. But I don't know that there's much point in going back to the diagram that I did that you had on the screen before, because it's been superseded by something that I think is a little bit more precise in terms of the possibilities. But it's up to you. It's,
Yeah, I mean, we'd like to see it. Let us present first. I mean, that's something we didn't
Yeah.
know you commissioned, so we
right,
wouldn't be able to respond to that. We just had what you provided with us last time.
right. I'm just saying, don't get too stuck on what we presented last time, which was, I think,
We weren't.
Okay,
We
okay.
made other adjustments to reduce everything inside of the setbacks.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, sure. Okay, thanks, Brian. And Mary Ann, we actually, I think we took your drawing in the spirit it was intended, which was not just as that potential idea, but as a challenge to do better. And so our response is kind of today is about that. I just wanted to share two quick reflections, just kind of as a bridge from our last discussion and hearing in February to this one. The first was a question that Mr. Sharp asked that is really has echoed in my head for the last many weeks. And the question was, can you live with a smaller house? It seems so reasonable to say yes, and I think it seems unreasonable to say no. I said no, I didn't think we could. Since then, we went back to the drawing board in kind of every way, looking for some other kind of solve, hoping there'd be a creative solution that would unlock us. Unfortunately, we didn't make any truly elegant discoveries. And that sort of brought me back to Will Sharp's question. The answer to the minimum footprint that we can live with and still proceed with this project is captured in the revised plan that, as Brian just said, Mickey will take you through in a few minutes. I do hope it's meaningful to you all. It's a meaningful reduction to us. We understand it's not a radical one. When we began the process, we were seeking more than what was initially submitted and before you in the last several hearings, and at the sort of urging of Ed Hollander and Brian, we scaled that back to what we believed coming into this committee and this process was our minimum. But at the same time, we did not want to come back empty-handed today, and so we're offering, on the footprint reduction, we're offering the most we can offer without losing all motivation to invest the time and a huge portion of our savings into this effort. And so that's the first. Yeah, sorry.
Mr. Harris, I'd just like to ask you one question. And when you found this property and you were attracted to it, what kind of advice did you get that led you to believe that you could build a very large house on this small lot? Was that from a real estate broker? Or you don't have to name names, but I'm kind of surprised that you have this feeling that you have the right to build such a large house on this small lot. And I wonder if you got professional advice to that end, because I'm not sure that they served you well.
Yeah, I did seek advice from a few different kinds of advisors. Legal advice was one, which was Brian, but I talked to other people involved in the village. I would say, Mary Ann, that I don't think that we're trying to build a huge house on this lot. As of today's proposal, it's revised to basically 2,700 square feet. That is well below the averages on every sort of comparison set. And we are doing a bunch of things to not just mitigate, but actually improve the parcel's existing relationship with the harbor and its existing relationship with the setbacks. So I understand your perspective, and I want to say that and this really gets to my second reflection since our last hearing, is that, I did feel we were a bit misunderstood in the last hearing. And I think some of that, I'm sure, was our fault. And I hope we do a better job today. There were a couple of statements that really, that stuck with me. And given how much we care about balancing our needs, with what's right for the town, with what's right for the harbor and the community, I think the hardest part of the last hearing for me was the characterization that maybe we or our advisors thought the rules didn't apply to us. And I can appreciate, that this committee has to deal with a lot of, all kinds of different applicants, and I'm sure some of them feel entitled. So I get where that comes from, but I want you to know, I don't feel entitled. That we are not those people. We do care about the rules, and we're working hard to honor them. We're working hard to do something positive here. Obviously, we have a personal motivation as well. So, one of, I don't remember who, but one of the members made I think a fair observation that it did feel disingenuous to say we were leaching fertilizer into the cove just so that we can kind of come to our own rescue and clean it up. And I must admit that totally resonated. I get that. Before this process, I wasn't aware that the existing site was leaching fertilizer into the cove. And so, on that kind of thing, approval or no approval, if we're actively doing something dumb today that we can stop, we'll stop doing it. We don't need an approval on an addition in order to become responsible citizens. But I think more the thrust of what we're here to kind of communicate and talk about is that we can't do the big remediation on this site and make kind of the big investment without some gain in usability and function. And I understand that's a needle to thread. We're trying to put forward a modest and reasonable proposal in that regard. My hope for today is that, we're able to answer some of your questions and frankly, your challenges from the last hearing. And I hope that together we're able to thread the needle. But I think ultimately that'll be up to you guys. And so those were just the things that I wanted to share and mention coming out of the last hearing. And with that, unless you have another question for me, Mary Ann, or somebody else does, I'm happy to hand it over to Mickey.
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. Mickey Benson, GP Schaefer Architect. This diagram here that we see of the site obviously illustrates some of the constraints that we're working within on this particular lot. The goal from the outset of this project has been to locate the septic system as far away from the waterfront as possible. And the way to do that obviously was to get it in the southeast corner on this lot. Puts it as far away from the waterfront, and then that imposes restrictions with respect to the siting of the house. I think we touched on that fairly heavily in the last presentation. Today, I want to talk about some of the architectural considerations, particularly with respect to the history of this house, and some of the constraints that we've faced and I think been able to navigate with respect to ARB and some of the things they focus on. Again, this shows the 2 rear yard setbacks. That's again another particular constraint on this particular waterfront property where the setbacks are a little more stringent because we've got 2 qualified rear yard setbacks, which I believe are 30 feet. And then this shows the 10-foot clearance that is required off of the septic system.
Just a moment. I don't have my zoning chart next to me, but I thought that there was 20 feet. Is it not 20 feet?
That is not correct. This is a lot that has 2 front yards and 2 rear yards, and that was the determination of Mr. Priato last year when we filed this application and went before the zoning board.
Okay.
So you can see that where we've positioned the house, we're tied up against this point here. Hopefully you can see my cursor up against the 10-foot clearance, the septic system here. which is really what's driving, which is limiting our eastward shift and maintaining the streetscape, its relationship to Green Street, which originally was on this front yard setback, and we're maintaining that. Not too far beyond that pinch point of the septic, we've got the rear yard setback. It's a few feet beyond that. And then even if we could get close to the septic, we'd soon be up a second pinch point here at this corner of the original structure, which would hit the septic at this point.
And where is the driveway in your picture?
The driveway is running along the east property line here.
Okay,
So I believe, Brian, we need a covenant to put the septic beneath the driveway.
That's correct. We talked to Mr. Delandra, who's on the call, but we could get a covenant with the Suffolk County Department of Health to locate this septic system on the eastern side of the property under the driveway, which runs along the eastern side.
that's good.
And that's what we're
Mickey, excuse me, Herb Sambler, just quick question. When you say you want to get the septic system as far away from the water as possible, really you also need to place it within the setback requirements of the village. Have you done that?
I
I can speak to that. Yes, sir. Where the septic requirements are the setbacks set forth by the county department, not the
Right.
village. The village
Right.
doesn't impose any more stringent, but we're meeting the minimum requirements for the Suffolk County Department of Health Services.
Which is 100 feet, right? It goes within that 100-foot setback? Is that
They
right?
ask for 100. We're a little short of that, but we're the farthest on the lot, and so that's what they review the application under.
Okay.
Actually, I think we're beyond 100 feet.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like it meets 100.
Yeah,
It
we're,
looks like you're beyond
yeah,
100.
I'm sorry, it's 105.3. So yes,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
105.3.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if we've mentioned, but Paul Delandra from Delandra Engineering is here if we have any specific questions about the septic system. I'm not particularly qualified in septic engineering. So going to the historic architectural aspects of the original house and how we've approached the design. This 12 Green Street is one of roughly 800 historic homes in Sag Harbor. And it's one of 156 homes specially documented on the National Register as having preserved their original historic condition and therefore contributing to the historic character of Sag Harbor. What that means in practical terms is that subjects us, and I'm sure you probably know this, but it subjects us to a higher level of scrutiny with respect to ARB considerations and what we can and can't change. And what we do with any additions. And obviously they get into the nitty gritty, as I'm sure you know, with material, color, window details, columns, and those, such things. And of course, they're very keen on understanding additions and how they relate to the original volumes and how visible they are. Primary consideration is the preservation of the streetscape. And we've taken great pains to maintain the historic character of the streetscape. This rendering shows the proposed design in its new location, shifted as far away from the waterfront as possible, with the, it's basically a three-part structure which we maintained. It's the original two-story gable volume in the center, with a one-story wing on the east, which is the original kitchen wing, and then a one-story addition on the west, the waterfront side. So in effect, those constitute, this diagram shows those three original structures or portions of the structure with our proposed additions on the north in the darker shade of blue. The point there being that these three primary volumes, which were critical components of the original volume, are the ones that are driving our eastward shift, and those are the ones that are coming up against these eastern constraints. It's really not the new additions that are hitting any of our eastern constraints. So that's an important point I wanted to, I'm not sure we were able to convey last time.
So hang on just a minute. The part that's the furthest west is a sunroom that was added later. That's not part of the original farmhouse.
That west one story doesn't go back to the original 1800s.
Right.
That's
And
correct.
it's being demolished entirely, right, and rebuilt.
It is, yes, but that was part, I mean, the one story that exists today, I think was added in the 60s, 50s or 60s. So it's been there at least 60 years. It was there, and it's documented in the historic register as well. My understanding from the ARB and our conversations with Zachary, the village historian, was that it doesn't have to go back to the very, very oldest portion of the house to be a contributing element to the historic streetscape. But it is there as part of the register, so they did want us to treat that sensitively, and they allowed us to redesign it. And in fact, I think we've redesigned it in a more historically sensitive way. But eliminating it completely was not something that we were encouraged to do in any way, and certainly we didn't want to consider as part of our application. So I think the next obvious question is, why couldn't our new additions take advantage of this kind of northeastern quadrant of the buildable envelope? And the reasons for that also are a function of the original architecture. Again, this two-story addition has to relate to the two-story addition of the central primary gable. Obviously we need continuity of the second, the upstairs bedroom floor for that configuration. So we treat it as an extension of the original two-story gable. The roof lines are running the same direction. And of course, the architectural review board criteria is that we have any additions be subservient to the original massing. So you can see we've got a narrower footprint for that new addition. We've also set the floor lines lower than the existing floor plan, so you actually step down on the interior, and that allows us to pull our entire roof line down, the eaves and so forth, having that sort of architectural hierarchy between the original components and the new proposed. And then the new one-story addition is sort of tucked within the crux of these larger volumes. Again, lower, very modest in scale, but also tucked below the roof lines of this existing kitchen wing. And one of the net effects, which I think the ARB responded very favorably to, is that very much makes these new additions practically invisible from the street. This rendering is an accurate massing model at sort of eye level from Green Street, and you actually don't see the two-story volume on the north, nor do you see the one-story addition here, which is sort of a glazed porch. So all that to say is that we are up against some limits with respect to the obviously the hard constraints of the setbacks and the septic system, but there are also these architectural considerations which we really needed to work within, and we believe we've exhausted all practical alternatives to a viable design that meets the program requirements, as well as the architectural historic considerations. We were glad that the ARB granted us the ability to shift to the east to the degree that we have. But it's our understanding, based on recent conversations where we went back to them, that this is about the limit of how much they're comfortable with us moving to the east. So again, I think we've done our best and tried to be as sensitive to the architectural constraints and historic constraints while getting it as far away from the waterfront as possible. So Brian and Mark alluded to this already, but we took a really close look at where we could reduce the square footage of the house, and we were able to reduce it to some degree, approximately a 25% reduction in what we presented to you in February in terms of the increase to the proposed footprint. The numbers here kind of tell the tale. What we proposed in February was a 1987 square feet proposed footprint, which represented a net increase to the existing of 617 square feet. Our plan, as we're proposing it today, is only 1,834, which represents a net increase of 464 square feet. So we were able to reduce this current design from what we showed you last time by about 25%. We don't want to present that like it's anything significant or game changing, but we did want you to know that we made that effort, and even those things were painful to Mark and the family when they were reviewing the plans. There's certain functionality to the program and circulation requirements obviously we needed to maintain. One of the other results of that reduction is that it actually, by reducing it that 25% from what we showed you last time, it actually eliminates that one outlier that was part of our, you remember this graphic scale we kind of presented to you last time that sort of shows the gains to the harbor. The one outlier in our previous iteration was that we were increasing the footprint within the 75-foot setback by approximately 20 square feet. By reducing it the way we have, we're actually yielding a net reduction within the 75-foot setback by 35 square feet. So that, move this into the column of gains for the harbor. I won't bore you by going through each of these. I think we touched upon these last time. But the takeaway here is that, in our opinion, we've improved the site ecologically in every measurable dimension. The drainage, the IA system, the wetland buffer, the ecohabitat, the shoreline restoration, both the 50-foot and the 75-foot encroachments, while maintaining what we think is a very historically sensitive design, which maintains the streetscape and contributes to will continue to contribute to the history of Sag Harbor. So I'll open up to any questions. Ed Hollander is here as well, if you have any questions.
I just want to say one thing if I can. And that, I've been a resident of the village for 25 years or so. So I'm a newcomer, I understand, in the history of the village. And we've done, since I've lived here, I've really, wanted to be a good citizen. And, that included being on the tree committee and working with the partnership to do a major, restoration of Oakland Cemetery and then Eastville Cemetery, and doing a master plan for the Whaling Museum, and then, designing Long Wharf, and obviously working for the last many years on John Steinbeck Park. But I'm actually very, very proud of what I think we've been able to accomplish on this site, and absolutely with the prodding of the Harbor Committee, have pushed us to do even a better job. But I think that this is a project which could be used to show other people how do you buy a house in today's market, and how do you end up with a project that provides so many improvements to the environment and so many improvements to water quality, which, as we all know, is the most important, the most important thing for Sag Harbor, for its continued future. And I appreciate how the board has pushed us. But of the things I've done in the village, I'm really quite proud of what we've been able to accomplish on a project like this, removing invasive species and improving buffers, and doing everything that we can on a site so that when we're done, we can say that we left this better than we found it, that everything we've done is an improvement for the environment, and it's an improvement to water quality and to the harbor itself.
Does anybody have any questions? Anybody on the committee? Ed, exactly what you just said is, in fact, my nightmare. And
Improving water quality? I
no,
thought that was a goal of the Harbor Committee.
well, I think it's a long debate that kind of goes beyond the scope of the Harbor Committee as we entertain issues here, as to whether or not what you're suggesting improves water quality. But what I'm referring to is that you're saying that this should be an example for people who want to move into Sag Harbor, and that if they replicate this kind of approach, that it's the kind of thing that will be good for Sag Harbor.
Well, what do you think about
Right.
this is detrimental, Marianne?
You know, I'm kind of a basic person, Ed. And I do believe that the people who wrote Chapter 285 gave it a lot of thought. And I also believe that those laws were written for everybody, not just the
Right.
people who don't have the money to come up with elaborate plans about how they have a better idea. So I still, and maybe I'm just a Puritan, but I believe in Chapter 285. I believe in that 75-foot setback.
Well,
And the
I
idea
agree
that
with,
this would set an example, and that's exactly what it will do, Ed. It will set an example, and our docket will be full of examples of people coming in and saying, we're going to do what happened at 12 Green Street.
well, except that, this isn't, if this was a new piece of construction, Mary Ann, I would agree with you 100%. But it's not
Ed,
a new piece of
we
construction.
never have new pieces of construction. It's all a matter of,
Well, that's not true, because you've approved 3 of my projects, which were new pieces of construction on the water. But this
well,
is,
I'm sorry, I just was by 10 Cove. I mean, there's a basic footprint there. I mean, is that what you're alluding to?
no,
I'm
but
talking about
there are
housing.
also others on Vitale City. But let's go back here. I think, what we've tried to do here, and listen, you and I come at this from the same place. We both care about the village. We both care about water quality. We both care about the harbor. And the reality is there's an existing house here that is going to be improved. Or listen, it could be left as is, but left as is, it's a negative. Left as is, it's hurting the harbor. I agree with you on that. Doing this, listen, in a perfect world, Mark would be able to buy Esther Newberg's property, knock that house down and push this back to the 75-foot line. But you've got a house that's already there. And there's so many benefits that come out of this to the terrestrial environment, to the marine environment, for native insects, native pollinators, native plants. It's not absolutely perfect, but perfection is a very, very difficult thing to demand in an imperfect world.
I would agree with that, but I don't think that holding to our 75-foot setback is looking for a perfect world.
But it's a recommendation in the code of 285. It's not a setback.
We treat it as a setback. And Brian, you are well aware.
I understand, but the code
enforce
doesn't
it.
say it's a setback. You can't treat it as a setback when the code doesn't define it as a setback.
All right, Fred, do you want to give me a reading on that?
Yeah,
It says
No,
recommendation in the code.
I will go to the code. So it's 50 feet for turf and fertilizer and pesticide, herbicides, et cetera, 75 feet for structures. And, they're not setbacks in the terms of zoning setbacks that are subject to variances, because the board, there are setbacks in the code. They are, the goal is to meet those setbacks. The most important thing in the code is the setbacks. You have to prove that you can't meet the setbacks before you can start looking at other alternatives. So I would simply just go to 285-9D1, which is, to consider relief from these requirements. I'm not going to get hung up on the term, whether you call them setbacks or otherwise. Those are what the board expects you to meet, unless you can show that there are no practical alternatives that can meet those setbacks. That's what's in the code. So there is no variance standard. That's the standard to show to not meet these requirements. So, really what's before the board is that you have an existing piece of property with an existing house on it, with a proposal to make modifications to expand it. The existing house doesn't meet the setbacks. This doesn't meet the setbacks. The burden that's on the applicant is, and what the board will have to find is that, if the board determines that the applicant has demonstrated that there are no practicable alternatives which meet the setbacks, which meet these requirements, then they can consider other options. And I should also point out the code says practicable alternatives that meet the standards are presumed to be available unless the applicant clearly demonstrates otherwise. So really what the board is going to determine here is that, they have a proposal that doesn't meet the 75-foot for structures. And they're going to have to determine whether or not you have demonstrated, whether the applicant has demonstrated that there are no practicable alternatives. And you've made your presentation. The board will make that determination whether they feel you met that standard or not. And if they do feel that you did, then they will consider these other things. That's kind of the other mitigation for not meeting the setbacks. And if they feel that you didn't meet the standard in showing that there were no practicable alternatives, they're going to turn you down. And that's basically the test.
Yep.
Fred, if I can ask you a question?
Sure.
They've made a statement basically saying, well, the ARB won't allow us to do that. The ARB wants the roof lines to line up, et cetera. So there's continuity. Is that a showing that there's no practical alternative? In other words, can they say there's no practical alternative because the ARB won't allow it?
Well, they've had to meet the standards of three boards, the zoning board for a variance, the ARB standards with regard to, protecting contributing structures within, within the village. So do I think that you have to consider those other factors in considering what's practicable? Yeah, I think you do.
Yeah, plus plus the health standards for the septic system.
Well,
that was another constraint on the property.
All of these factors, whether it's ARB, zoning board, health department, they all are part of determining what's practicable.
But Fred, as these different almost competing, and I kind of hate to use that word, committees that have different views and different rules, I don't think that there's been established a hierarchy. No. And I think that one of the things that's pitiful about this situation is that this should have come to Harbor Committee first before it got all the way down down the road with gables and sunrooms and this, that, and the other. Because I think that the rules of the road should have been more clearly sort of excavated here for this particular applicant. And I think that's what, the only word that I can come up with is pitiful, because there's certainly a lot of emotion and a lot of money that has gone into this. But I don't feel, as a member of the Harbor Committee, that we are subordinate or subservient to the rules of the ARB or the ZBA. I think that there's got to be sort of a symphonic kind of meeting of these different requirements. And, it's not, like I said, yes, I understand your disdain with the little hodgepodge that I put together as I tried to show you from my kitchen counter what I thought was feasible from a Harbor Committee point of view and integrating that into the other expectations of these boards. So yes, we went and did something that's more sophisticated, and I think Chick has got that on his screen. Not on his screen, I'm sorry, but on his computer. And he might be able to show you what it is.
So this was a study that really primarily looked at reconfiguration of the sanitary system in a north-south, I guess it would be, orientation, or at least along this portion of the property, as opposed to clustering it within the corner. And it also provided the potential for drainage pools that would accommodate stormwater. And it located at least the primary portion of the house very close to the 75-foot setback. It is farther from the street by a few feet. And at least this particular diagram does not show the sunroom, but it does show the sunroom as it was attached to the original plan. So it was just one other look at a potential way to try and move things to achieve a greater setback. And the primary difference really is the orientation of the sanitary system.
You're missing a western portion of the house.
Well, the part of the house that was built in 1960, yes.
And even this is over the setback line.
Right.
Yes.
We,
But you know, if you came in and you asked us for a 4-foot variance, I think we could have a deep and meaningful conversation.
With who?
Us, with the committee. I mean, if this is, as Ed points out, this is still into the 75-foot setback by, I think, 4 feet.
Is the separation from the wetlands to the leaching pools available on this sketch?
These are the sanitary system leaching pools, and the 100-foot setback is right here. And the drainage pools, I think we're generally less concerned about. Those are at the 75-foot setback.
And who created this chick?
I don't know, Brian.
It's a firm in Medford, Jason Pontieri.
We'll get a copy of that from the village.
Hey, Paul, maybe you want to speak to this, but we did talk about this possible septic layout, and we very quickly moved on from it and rejected it because we considered it clearly worse for the harbor, because the leaching galleys, as I've come to learn, unfortunately, way more than I'd ever want to know about septic systems. But what I understand is the leaching galleys are the part of the septic you want furthest away from the harbor. And this moves them much closer to the harbor than in our configuration. And so to trade, moving leaching galleys considerably closer to the harbor so that you can get a structure a few feet further from the harbor was, in our view, a non-starter in terms of thinking about this through the lens of what is best ecologically.
Well, it's more than a few feet, it's 20 feet. And I have one kind of oddball question here, is that there's a cottage that is there. You have on your diagram, you have an existing garage. There's also an existing cottage, and it shows a septic system on one of the diagrams that we have, one of the drawings, but the Suffolk County Department of Health says that there's no septic for that structure. So there's a bit of a conflict there. I'm not sure what it is that you are thinking and intending to. I mean, I don't know what's possible here, but I'd like to know what your perception is of your plan.
That cottage is not that's a shed. It was a
there's no septic system.
Garden shed.
There's one that shows on one of the surveys.
Mark, is it your intent to use either of those sheds to have plumbing or to need a septic system at any point?
No.
We're not allowed to, since one doesn't exist and it's more than 200 square feet in the village. One of the surveys shows dry wells, so we can reevaluate that, but the village wouldn't allow plumbing in those structures on the northeast corner because they didn't have plumbing prior to the enactment of the new code in 2017.
Chick, can you just look on that diagram? Because we discussed this, it's kind of putting you on the spot, and there's like 5 million different drawings right now. But there is something that shows a septic. And I don't want to be in a, down the road, no matter what happens here, I don't at some point want, there to be like, well, it was grandfathered in, because we've ended up in that situation before.
I mean, I can say for the record, it's not grandfathered in. It's not on the C of O with the village.
From the septic standpoint of what was submitted to the Suffolk County Health Department and has been reviewed by them, we are not proposing any septic facilities for those back two buildings as well.
I think what was a little bit confusing is there is a cover here,
That's the existing septic system
right?
Or the house or
for the
for
house.
The house.
And that will be abandoned and removed.
That's correct.
That's a cesspool?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
So obviously that's closer to the harbor. I don't know
correct.
if the cottage is connected to it.
It is not.
You're saying that there will be no sanitary associated with the cottage.
Correct. We're not permitted.
And so just to, just to touch on what Mark indicated before, if the sanitary system is 100 feet, then that meets the setback. And, the 100 feet is intended to ensure that bacteria and virus don't migrate to the harbor because of the filtration through soils. And obviously with an IA system, we have a lower nitrogen concentration at the source, and the code essentially outlines 100 feet. So just in trying to balance things, this may be one way to balance it, where the sanitary leaching pools are closer but still meet the standard, or at least the code requirement of 100 feet. And then this would need to be discussed, as Marianne said.
So I think this is a practicable alternative. And I would ask you to put your creative juices into looking at this layout.
So it's not a practical alternative if it doesn't accomplish the applicant's goals.
Yeah.
This is a different house that you're proposing, but we can look at the septic design with the current proposed house.
Okay, well, Brian, I want you to hear me, please.
I hear you.
Well, I'm just going to say it one more time, is that I think what Suffolk County and a lot of reasonable people would think is a 6-bedroom house is not reasonably situated on this piece of property. There is a disconnect there. It is not possible. So
Well,
This isn't a 6-bedroom house. It's a 3-bedroom above grade, 2,700 square foot house. We're hopeful we could get 1 bedroom into the basement. I just want to say that I've thought a lot about this practical alternatives standard. I've also thought a lot about what is best for the harbor. And Chick, I agree with you. Obviously, this is inside the 100-foot setback. But the reason we actually disregarded this septic design was that you have leaching galleys that are now probably close to almost 15 to 20 feet closer to the wetland than in the arrangement that we've proposed. And you're moving the eastern boundary of the house over only a handful of feet, or if that far. And so that felt like a really bad trade-off, because there is absolute science that the leaching galleys you would want as far away from the wetland as possible, whereas the structure is a little less clear. And that's not in any way taking away from the importance of the setbacks. We believe the setbacks are really important. The other problem with this is you can't drive over an IA system. The only way you could accommodate that is that we would have to put a giant, like 16-foot concrete dome around that IA system, which is a lot more impervious cover. So we did look at this arrangement. It was a really bad arrangement for the harbor. And that's why we didn't go with it. It would have allowed us to move the house over, I think, another 3 or 4 feet or something like that. But it's, you
So,
hit that
Mr. Harris-
setback pretty quickly.
Mr.
Under the
Harris,
practical alternatives standard, I agree. I want to address, Marianne, what you said before. Okay. there is no hierarchy. We don't see any hierarchy between the committees. We're just trying to navigate all of them and thread the needle of creating a project here that's positive for everybody. That room to the west is part of the history of this house. The ARB was, I think it was very important to them that we were helping to conform it to the fabric of the truly historic house. But I would also say that we want to do all this site restoration, but we obviously have to get some pickup in usability and function to go to the effort and spend the money and time. And so if we start eliminating big chunks of the house, obviously that takes away that motivation. The thing that we've been focused on is we believe in the 75-foot setback. We believe in the rules. We're trying to honor that. And in fact, we are improving the existing property's relationship with that 75-foot setback. If we don't do anything, the property has a worse relationship with the 75-foot setback. And so, you know, protecting the setback's super important, but protecting the status quo is not actually protecting the harbor. There was not long ago, there was a train that ran along this wetland. And that certainly wasn't better than what is there today. And then what is there today is an existing condition that's in violation of all kinds of things: drainage, septic, setback, a whole bunch of stuff. And this is an opportunity for us to clean all of that up and really improve upon it. And yes, we're asking for 436 square feet of footprint addition to do that. We are constrained by the ARB requirements because this is a specially protected home. So there's only really one place we can put that addition. You know, so I think when we think about practical alternatives, I wish we had come to you first. I would definitely recommend to everybody to come here first. But we knew we had to please multiple committees. We did it in the order we did it. Their rules would not have changed. And you know, what we're left with is presenting a project that we think does a lot of good on a bunch of fronts, and we hope that you can see that.
I mean, I'd like to say a few words if I can. This is Herb Sample. Marianne, is that okay?
Of course.
I mean, very frankly, I think this is a pretty impressive application. I mean, I understand the concern and the focus on the setbacks. And I think in that regard, you know, they've improved the 50-foot setback so that it's being totally respected. They've complied with the 75-foot setback regarding the auxiliary structure, namely the pool. And they are meeting the requirement with respect to the septic system with the 100-yard setback. So in terms of setbacks on the property, I think they've done a pretty good job at complying with them. So what we're really talking about is, in my view, just in my opinion, is a rather modest addition to the house. It is not, in my view, and maybe this is just a function of my own perspective on things, but just based on other things that I've seen come through the committee, but also just in the town in general, this is a rather modest house. And so I'm not so much concerned with the fact that it is excessively large for the house. As far as I'm concerned, there are no variances requested for any lot coverage. In fact, if I recall the plans correctly, we were well under the maximum lot coverage. Is that right, Brian?
We were under and compliant on that, yes.
Yeah. Were there any other dimensional variances that you requested?
The only variance we needed was in moving the house. The current house violates the pyramid law. So when we move the house 8 feet and back, we actually have less pyramid violation. So we went to the zoning board to get less relief than the current house has. And that was the purpose of going there.
So Herb, you're saying it's a modest sized house. I think we're talking about the scale of the footprint, but what's the overall square footage of the living area?
In the new house?
Uh-huh.
I think it's about 3,000 square feet.
2,700. 2,700. 2,715 is the precise number.
which is under the maximum size house in an R20 zone. Is that right, Brian?
It is.
We have submitted, and we actually have the pages. We could show them if you want, but we've submitted objective data on this, and against all the sort of relevant comparison sets, we're well below the averages.
I just wanted to make sure that Herb wasn't looking at your previous diagram that showed like something that was under 2,000 and thinking that was the max.
I see.
No,
Yeah,
3,000.
I see.
3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2,715.
Yeah, plus just one other thing, if I may say, we spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks. We heard a very impressive report from Dr. Gobler about, the water quality in Sag Harbor, and time again, the two biggest culprits leading to water quality degradation are malfunctioning septic systems and on-site runoff into surface waters. And it seems to me that these guys have taken a lot of steps here that are going to be quite expensive to do. And at some point, they will have to decide whether to invest in those improvements can be justified by the value of the house that they will have at the end of the day. So I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I'm open for further discussion, but I think overall, on a net basis, the improvement to the environment is pretty considerable, and I think I think they had to navigate a lot of different things. When we talk about practical alternatives, even that is not an objective standard. That's something that each of us on the Harbor Committee, and I think Fred alluded to this, we have to decide whether or not the applicant made that effort. And when you think about the various maybe if not competing, at least overlapping jurisdictions that they had to compete with. And certainly historic preservation is, I would say it's on a par with water quality in Sag Harbor. I mean, I think they've obviously brought in a very capable architect, and this is a nice house. So
Anybody else have any comments that they want to,
Yeah.
ask
John
questions?
Parker.
Yes, John.
Okay. The comment that I want to make, Marianne, is partly to what you said. I mean, I don't want to minimize the importance of the setbacks, but I do want to recognize that there have been changes in the science since the code was written. When the code was written, the science was that the majority of the nitrogen, which was going into the surface water, which was a problem, was coming from such things as fertilizer runoff. And it didn't address the amount or minimize the amount of the nitrogen that was coming from septic systems. At the time the code was written, IA systems didn't exist. They weren't approved. There was minimal science as to the amount that upgrading the systems could do to decrease the amount of nitrogen. That's changed since the code was written. The current science is that and Dr. Gobler's report substantiates this, is that the majority of the nitrogen in this area, village area of like Sag Harbor, that is going into the surface water from the village comes from the septic systems.
John, I don't think his report backs that up. I think stormwater.
Marianne, if I can finish, please. You can look this up if you want. I know it's the science. I know it's correct because I did the research. I did the research on this when we wrote the code to require IA systems, and that was the reason for the requirements. So that I think we have to recognize that we can't slavishly follow a law that was written before the science changed and before IA systems were readily available.
I just view what we 10 days ago heard from Dr. Gobler, where he strongly emphasized the role of runoff in the pollution of our harbors and bays. And that's both from a nitrogen and from a fecal contamination point of view.
But I
So,
think this
yeah.
application addresses that very, very
I
comprehensively.
mean, but that's one of the main things we're focusing on is eliminating any fertilized areas within any buffer area and then going above and beyond and restoring the slope, restoring the marshland. And the applicant has even agreed to take and do a similar reasonably expensive restoration of the public area at the end of Green Street. And I think you have to weigh all of these good things. I think throwing out all of this good, because this, you know, what we're proposing is 6 feet over the line, where this one here is 4 feet over the line. There's got to be a balance for all the good, I would think.
Does anybody else have a comment?
Paul from Delandra Andrews Engineering. I would just like to comment that the currently proposed septic system was done in an effort to maximize the separation distance of the leaching structures and drainage from the harbor. And I think it did, given the site constraints, a good job of doing that. We did evaluate numerous different configurations, different leaching structure types, different IA units and configurations. And one similar to the one that was on the page was foregone in an effort to maximize that separation from the wetlands, both with respect to the, the surface waters and containing those with the dry wells, as well as the leaching structure. So I just wanted to comment on that.
I know I heard that before, not to be, rude or anything, but I think that, again, we sort of take comfort in the fact that they are over 100 feet away. So is there anybody else on the committee who has an opinion, or are we moving here towards taking a vote?
It's Kate Plum here. I'd just like to say that the Harbor Committee's mandate is the 75-foot setback. And, and that's the leaching, the part of the problem in the bay is about the leaching, so, you have to, a Harbor Committee has to take its own, narrow jurisdiction that we have a certain jurisdiction that we have to hold to. And I think that's very important. I think, limiting that infringement is the most important thing that we can look at myself. Thank you.
Will or Lily, any comments, any thoughts?
I would say that I've learned a lot on this project, and I'm ready to vote. And what I've learned are from both sides of the equation, and I'm thankful for that. And I think that the applicant at first seemed a little reluctant to make certain changes. I'm impressed with the scale reduction. I think about scale and harmony an awful lot in this village. And I think that environmentally and in terms of scale, this project is, how do I say this? I don't want to say nice. I think they've met a lot of standards that I appreciate.
Lily, do you want to chime in, or should we just take a vote on this?
Well, before we do anything, there may be other members of the public that want to be heard.
Yes, thank you, Fred. Doris, can you see if anybody has a hand up?
I will check right now, Marianne.
I don't know how to put a hand up, but I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, Luke Babcock.
Yes.
Luke Babcock, 17 Bluff Point Road, resident of the village and of Sag Harbor Cove. I've just been following this project in the papers for the last year or two, and I thought maybe it'd be helpful just as a sort of arm's length member of the community to give a quick view. I've been through projects with this, a pretty extensive project with this committee. Plus I've been through some projects with Breakwater. and participated on some village clean water committees. So pretty familiar with what's going on. I apologize for not being completely versed in all of the exact details of the code. But, just from a sort of arm's length view, I would say by any objective, I see this as it's a beautiful restoration of the house, and more importantly, of the property, of the wetlands, and of course, most importantly, the septic system. I think it's the kind of project that should be encouraged, not discouraged, in the village. It reduces encroachment. It restores the wetlands. It improves the septic system in a major way. And I think it fits into the community. It fits into the cove. I almost hesitate to knock other projects, but I really can't help it. When I leave work today, I'm going to drive home and I'm going to go down Glover, maybe drive through Redwood, particularly John Street, and even Bluff Point Road where I live. And there's monstrosities going up left and right. I can't help but not mention what I, every time I drive by it, I think it's Splish Splash Water Park being built at the corner of where John Street turns. And if the owner of that project's on this call, I apologize. I want to knock your house, and that might have been approved under a different board, but this to me seems like 180-degree different from what a lot of these projects I see building. They're too tall, too large for the property, and just in my opinion, devastating the neighborhoods and the wetlands. And this project, I think I'm speaking for most of my neighbors and other people in the Cove, is this is the kind of project that should be approved and appreciated, and like some other participants have said, sets a good example for the type of project that should be approved in the Cove. Thank you.
Herb Sambler, can I have one more question for the architect, please?
Of course.
Can you again describe the relationship between the ridge beam of the addition in the main bay to that of the existing house? You talked about a step down into that bedroom up there, but from the exterior, will that ridge beam also be below the elevation of the existing ridge beam?
That is
You on the ARB, Herb?
No, just talking about the scale of the house relative to the neighborhood, the view from, the view from around. Yeah, okay, it may not be strictly relevant, but I'd just like to know.
Yeah, to answer the question, that the proposed addition, the two-story addition on the north, it's like a reduced scale version of the two-story existing gable, right? So it's lower, the ridge height is lower, the eaves heights are lower, and the width of the entire volume is narrower than this.
Okay, well, one more question for the applicant or the owner, if I may.
Please.
So if this thing were approved, one of the components of it, I'm hoping, is still, and I think Ed just alluded to this, was to improve the waterfront area at the end of Green Street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And would you anticipate any kind of public access through there? Would somebody be able to drop off a kayak or a canoe, something like that?
Now you're well above my pay grade. I have to connect you with the mayor, but
It is used as that now, or people do
All right.
use it to launch paddleboard, so it'll be more accessible.
And do you think a new owner or an owner of a new house there would have any objections to people, using that as an access area?
But
If
Herb,
It's owned by the village, so
It's a public road end. I think it's a public access.
That's
so
correct.
It doesn't really
Right.
matter what the owner thinks.
Right, but
you
there'll
can
there'll
use
be
it.
car.
if
but
you're
there'll
going to
be
live in
cars.
Sag Harbor, you better like your neighbors.
Yeah, there'll be cars parking and people dropping off,
Yep.
kayaks, and that's just going to be a fact of life.
Yep.
Okay, good.
okay, so can I have a motion here to close the public hearing? Is there anybody else in the public who would like to speak? Okay. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
So,
Sorry, folks. I was just gonna, sorry, I thought I was unmuted. I was just gonna say a couple words if it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I live down the street at.
I'm sorry, just state your name for the record, please.
Oh, yes, it's Rufus Griscom.
Thank you.
And I live down the street on the corner of Glover and Redwood, 125 Glover. and a lot of the neighbors have gotten together because we're concerned about the proposal to build a big cell tower where there's currently a radio tower, and we're concerned about the aesthetics. We're concerned about the ecological impact. But and like all the neighbors were, one thing I will say that is very impressive is to see how much thoughtfulness and care and concern goes into this process. So thank you everybody for your role and participation in that. I would say that I'm looking out the window at a new structure going up on Vitali Silly on the water. That the footprint looks very large. 10 Cove, I bike by with my kids all the time, and it looks like a small hotel with a pool, infinity pool on the water. I mean, this to me looks like the most tasteful and attractive, building proposal I've seen on the Cove. And so I just wanted to share those sentiments that as a neighbor, one thing that's been nice about this process with the cell tower is I've gotten to meet a lot of neighbors, a little silver lining. And my read is that the neighborhood would really appreciate this as a really thoughtful and attractive project. So, thank you.
Anybody else from the public here that would like to speak? Okay, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we had a first from Will and a second from Herb.
Sure.
I think we now want to take a vote on whether or not we want to make a motion, or if we want to make a motion to direct Chick to draw up a permit for this particular application. And then we will vote on that.
Mary Ann, are we talking about the most current application that they presented, or that a reasonable alternative that you presented? And I don't, yeah.
No, the reasonable alternative, I feel that there is a reasonable alternative that satisfies to a very great extent what I think are the rules of 285. But that's not, I don't think, well, I don't know. I should ask the applicant if they would like us to go forward to have a vote on whether or not, thumbs up, thumbs down on the application as they have submitted it today on April 1st.
Yes.
Right. That's what I thought. So I think, Kate, what we're doing is we are voting heads up, heads down
Right.
on the application as it's been submitted by the applicant.
But just to clarify, the April 1st application includes a reduction in that portion of the addition to the house, which exists within the 75-foot setback.
That is correct. It's the reduced size house.
And I believe we have all of those plans that were submitted previously. They were just presented tonight.
That is correct. You've been, yes.
Okay. So does somebody want to make a motion? And then we can vote on it?
Well, let me ask a question first, if I can. I've asked this before, but to the applicant, there has been presented here by Mary Ann what is believed, or she believed, or others believe, is a practical alternative, and there may be other alternatives. So I don't know whether the applicant wants more time to consider that alternative or other alternatives, or would rather us vote on this tonight.
No, we would vote on what it's tonight. We've looked through those alternatives. We don't perceive what Mary Ann has generated as a practical alternative.
And is the swimming pool still in the same place that it was?
It is.
John, thank you for that invitation. I think that I would concur with Brian. We, have appreciated the challenges and the prompts here, and I would really love, Mary Ann, I want you to feel better about this, and I would love your support I think that I wouldn't consider what was just put up as a practical alternative. We know that that is not, like, we are trying to satisfy what the ARB requires, where we can site the house, how we can configure the house. And we've been in this process for 8 months. I think we really feel like we have exhausted that survey of options. And we really have also looked very carefully at the code. And I think we really genuinely believe we are honoring the code here. And I think we feel we're satisfying it with what we have in front of you.
So, John, did you have your question answered?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I'm asking for a motion. How do I state this correctly, Fred? I'm asking
Well,
for a
you
motion
could
to,
entertain a motion to approve, or you could entertain a motion to deny, but somebody would have to make the motion.
All right, in the interest of time here, I will make a motion to approve.
and is there a second?
Approve, second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Just me?
Oh, well, I think I abstain. I don't vote.
Okay, you're an alternate and everybody's here, so
I don't vote.
you don't have to vote.
Thank you very much.
And Marianne, if I could just say, while we were talking about this, I did some research on my other computer, and I brought up the charts showing the contribution of nitrogen and current charts as to whether it's from stormwater or groundwater or septic systems. And it clearly shows that now the science is that only a very small proportion is considered in general to be from stormwater. The septic systems going into the groundwater is considered to be the main contribution.
So John, I think then what you should do is you should talk about revising the code then.
Well,
Because that's what you're saying is that our
certainly-
code
well,
is out of date.
I think just as we consider the U.S. Constitution in terms of things that have happened in the last 200 years or more, we need to consider the code in regards to the new science. And Chick, if I'm wrong,
I'm an originalist. I'm an originalist.
Chick, if I'm wrong on the science on this, please tell me. But I've got it sitting right up here, a pie chart showing what the major contributions are. It actually shows it for the whole county, but it breaks it down as to locations in Shelter Island Sound, et cetera.
So John.
I know it's different if you're in farm country as opposed to trailer.
John, I'm giving you the hook. You can forward that to everybody on the committee, and then we can continue to discuss that, and it's whether or not we think that we need to revise the code. But we have a long agenda ahead of us.
Well, I just asked Chick to tell me if I'm wrong. It's a yes or no. It's either.
No, it's not just a yes or a no. Can we just move on?
Can I say thank you to everybody for all the consideration?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good night.
likewise. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your work on this. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Marianne, just for the record, the board directs Chick Voorhees to prepare a final wetlands decision for the next meeting. And for the record, it is May 6th.
Okay. All right. So we have another application here that's got a continued public hearing, which is 29 Harding Terrace. Is there somebody here to speak for this application?
I believe hi, Kelly.
Hi, everybody. Kelly Rizzo.
Excuse me, for the record, I have to recuse myself.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Will.
All right. So Kate, you're viable now.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Marianne.
Thank Will.
Thank you, Will.
So Kelly, can you introduce yourself and give your address, please?
Yes, Kelly Rosado with Land Use Ecological Services, representing the applicant, Susan Rabinovich. Our address is 570 Expressway Drive South in Medford, 11763. Excuse me. This is a continuation from 2 prior hearings. I don't know if I'm able to share my screen or if Doris
Yes.
you need to let me do that.
I will let you do that, Kelly. Give me 1 minute, please.
Yep.
Okay, you are ready.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So we've all seen this before. This I gave this similar presentation last month, just to reorient ourselves. 29 Harding Terrace is in the northeast, the upper right corner of this aerial photo. This is a 2019 growing season aerial from Google Earth, just showing.
Kelly, we're not seeing
not there.
anything.
Oh, you're
We're not seeing you.
Oh,
We're seeing you, but we're not seeing your screen.
oh, that's weird.
It says you've started screen sharing, but I don't see it.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to resume share and it's not doing anything. Let's try this again.
Kelly, just open your document first before you share, and
There we
then
go.
there you go.
It's good now?
Perfect.
Okay. So again, this is the 2019 growing season aerial of this showing the site. Sorry, I'm going to go down. This is a winter aerial, just because it's so vegetated around the neighborhood. As you can see here, lots of trees and whatnot. We had a winter aerial in here from 2020, the JS Clearinghouse, showing conditions as of about a year ago. You know, existing development, pools, setbacks, and things like that. But I'm not really going to focus on that a whole lot. There's been a lot of discussion in the prior hearing and the last 2 months with this application about setbacks, specifically the 75-foot structural setback that is, as discussed at the last hearing, a recommendation, but not a standard like a zoning setback is in the code. I'm not going to go into that part again, but I just wanted to show this figure that I had presented again to show that the area in purple is the area that's within 75 feet of the wetland boundary. And it's basically the entire site. So as far as practicable alternatives that would meet the requirements set forth in Chapter 285, there literally are none because the entire site is within 75 feet of the wetland boundary. Next is this table that I actually added to a little bit. You know, we discussed last month the fact that, yes, there is an addition that's approximately 360 square feet that is proposed. It would add to the village zoning coverage calculations, approximately 307 square feet. There is a part of it that, you know, is over existing coverage and existing structure, so it's not the full 360. Just want to point out, as we discussed it last month, under the code, the allowable coverage is 2,836 square feet, 25% of the lot. We're proposing 2,337 square feet of coverage, which is 20.6% of the lot, which is under what is allowable. So there was a discussion about, you know, overdeveloping the lot, and we're actually under the zoning.
Kelly, I just want to interrupt you for a moment.
Yes.
And maybe the committee needs to remind me, but I thought we left it at the end of last month that you were going to go back to your applicant about dealing with just the footprint.
That's not, yes, that's not an alternative. That's not, that, you know, they're not going to, they can't put in a pool in addition on the way that's proposed here within the existing footprint unless they want to remove half of their living space. And that's just not something that's feasible. It's not a practicable alternative. Not to mention the fact that even something within the footprint would still require you to approve something within 75 feet of the wetland boundary. There's no alternative that gets 75 feet.
Right, but it's an existing structure. I just would like to sort of poll the committee here. whether or not we want to go through this application on this level again. From my point of view, I think that we reviewed it pretty clearly last time and came to the conclusion that we weren't going to go forward with an addition that went beyond the footprint.
And I think we even got the Fred Thiel's, judgment on this situation.
And
as I
can I
recall.
I noticed that nothing's changed about the survey and you're still showing the outflow and inflow of Little Northwest Creek as part of the property. Is that correct?
Yes, it is part of the deeded property. It's in the deed that was submitted with the
But
application.
shouldn't that be taken into consideration about the wetlands? I mean, that you've got, those aren't even being taken into account in the survey. I mean, you've got how many feet from the house to the actual water in the bluff there?
Well, it's all within 75 feet. I think that that picture that she put up where everything was lavender, because it's all within 75 feet. The fact that the water has come closer to the house makes it even maybe more egregious, but even with the present survey, if I understand it right, it's all within 75 feet.
And that's from the
It's
wetlands to the east. That's not the bay.
Okay. Can you put that back up there again, please? I'm sorry.
Love to look at that.
Yeah, that's the setback that's from the wetlands that are this green line right here where my mouse is highlighting. And
Okay.
yes, part of it is the bay side, but that's, this is a 50-foot setback from the bay side wetlands here, this line. So,
Right. So it's all within 75 feet.
so the property itself, yes, within the wetland boundary.
Right. There's no piece of property there outside the present footprint that's not within the 75-foot setback.
There's a little sliver on the west side over
Okay.
here.
Okay.
But I mean, nothing that you could put a structure in.
Right, nothing buildable.
Right. So, I mean, yes, we did not change the proposed addition. I was going to go through the standards of the code and talk about how, again, we meet the standards. Yes, it is a reduced setback, but similar to the other application, that is the one impact. That is the one thing that doesn't meet is the setbacks. Yes, we're within 75 feet, but the structure itself does not have a direct impact on the wetland. It is not shading the wetland. It is not disturbing or destroying the wetlands directly. There are no direct impacts from the proposed addition on the wetlands. There are direct impacts from the existing conditions that this application will improve on. First being the sanitary system. The existing sanitary system is in the location approximately of where the proposed addition is. It is shown on the survey. The proposed system will gain about 4.5 feet of setback to the wetland. It will be an IA system, so it will reduce nitrogen loading. There was a lot of discussion about water quality and nitrogen loading in the prior application. So, and we've also talked about it. I won't go into it in detail. That's one direct impact that we will be improving on. It will be a significant benefit of this project. The second, also discussed at the last hearing, was stormwater runoff. Currently, there is no stormwater management system on this site. We're proposing a system to treat and store through dry wells 2 inches of runoff. We're also proposing a separate dry well for any pool backwash. They'll handle 10% of the pool backwash. Again, that's a complete benefit, direct benefit to the wetlands with this project. And then the third is the buffer and native vegetation. So the owner is essentially, as a trade-off for the addition, taking the whole rest of the property and converting it to a buffer, with the exception of, not on the west side of the house where the sanitary and the dry wells are, but everything north of the addition towards the bay side, and then along the east side of the property, pretty much right up into the existing walkways. It's a couple of feet off of the walkway to give maintenance access around and things like that. that's all going to be planted with native vegetation. It'll be planted with shrubs, herbaceous vegetation to protect those wetlands, create habitat, filter any additional runoff, provide flood and erosion control, all of these things that are extremely beneficial to this area. So when you look at the standards and being able to permit something that is less than the 75 feet, again, if you look at the site as a whole and look at the direct and indirect benefits versus impacts, I mean, the direct benefits and improvements to water quality outweigh far the structure that's within 75 feet of the setbacks. So, I can go through and just, the couple of standards here in 285-9. Again, we're proposing the maximum buffer we can. We will not impair the capacity of the wetland or buffer to provide habitat. We will not impair the wetlands and surface water quality. As a matter of fact, we'll be directly improving on that. We'll be directly improving on habitat. And all of the mitigation measures here satisfy the protection and enhancement of wetlands and wetland benefits criteria. So yes, we don't meet the setback, but the site and the water quality and the wetlands will be protected and improved upon directly from the other work that is proposed with this project that will not otherwise be implemented. And that's basically it. Like I said, we've talked quite a bit over the last 2 months about the project. I'm happy to answer any questions or have any other discussions, but it's it's right there. So.
Does anybody from the committee have a question?
I'm sorry. This is John Parker. I'll ask a question. I don't have all of my paperwork with me. I'm out of town. But seems my recollection is that part of this addition, it did add some structure in the setback area. In other words, towards the wetlands, and your chart, if I'm reading it correctly, says that it doesn't. Am I not looking at this correctly?
No, so the existing structures are closer to the wetlands than what is proposed. The minimum setback currently with the existing deck is 26.4 feet, and the existing house is 32.1 feet. Again, and that's on the east side. That's the closest wetland setback. And then the addition is 41.4 feet from that eastern, from the east side. It's 52.1 feet from the bay side, with a 50-foot buffer proposed on the bay side.
Okay.
Can you put up the plan again, just for visual purposes?
Maybe. Not my, let me
I know the feeling. So
yes, no. I just have to see what I remembered to email myself as I'm at home. The
one that was up before was fine.
Oh, the right, the overlay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I can't minimize this. All right. This one. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. I forgot that I had overlaid the plan on the aerial. So yeah, so your minimum wetland setbacks are all here to the eastern wetlands. With the addition, with the existing deck, and with the existing dwelling is here. On the southeast corner is the dwelling, the northeast corner is the deck. And then the proposed pool, also the minimum setback is on the east side. And just this actually, we brought this up last month. The addition is generally in line with the pool next door. So even though, again, it's within the 75 feet on that north side, it's still not encroaching closer to the bay than other structures. You know, the one, it's approximately in line with that one. So
But that one was under a different code.
that's fine. I'm just pointing out that it's about the same. So there's no, again,
wanna-
you know,
I'd like to ask like the members of the Harbor Committee, and I know Lily, you've walked this area, you know this piece of property. John Parker, I assume you do as well. Will, you're not voting on this. Kate, do you know this piece of property?
Yes,
And-
I walked it. I met the owners. They were outside. Yep. I
And
walked it.
Herb, have you been over there? Have you walked this piece of property? Maybe not, huh?
Who?
Herb.
Oh, yes, yes, I have. I haven't walked the property per se, but I've walked along the waterfront side of it, and I've also viewed the house from the street side.
Okay.
And the bay side is losing landmass as we speak.
Right.
I mean, I have to say, I question that you're giving us a survey that's dicey to begin with, showing that the front yard is over on Barcelona Neck. And I'm question the measurement of the distance from the house, like you said, Kate. You know, that land is.
It's disappearing.
Yeah, I mean, even what they're showing now in this from 2019 isn't there.
Yeah, the stairs are crawling, the stairs are crumbling into the water there.
They actually had to put a new ladder or something up to get people up there showing the property.
Yeah.
But I think if you take a tape measure, I think it's a lot closer than what you've got there.
Agreed.
I'm not really sure what, I mean, the survey is the deeded property. So that is the owner's property.
I know, but
that's
Kelly,
needs some doubts on the deed. So
you've
the
got a river
setbacks
running
though that
through
are on here are to the property boundary from the deed. That's the long one. And then all the others are from the flagged wetland boundary, which is not high water. It's the flagged wetland boundary.
And what was the date of the survey?
I can say that I did flag the wetlands on this property, and I believe that the wetland as it's shown is accurate.
We can't.
There's too much reverb.
Yeah.
We didn't get what you said, Chick.
The green dashed line represents the location of the wetlands, and I believe that to be accurately shown on this plan.
Okay.
Now, again, on the plan, if I can ask, the orange, is that the existing house?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, so then there's a red outline that's showing the addition, which includes the pool area.
Correct. Yes.
And that pool area is above where there's an existing deck.
Partially. There's the
No.
the pool itself
No.
is not, but the addition is partially over the existing deck. You see this the black line that's just south of the pool. I don't know if you can see the hand of my mouse moving. That is the line of the existing deck. So it is partially over the existing footprint. The pool itself is not, but a portion of the addition is.
Not over the footprint, but over the deck. Wow, there's a lot of reverberation.
It's a second story pool. The pool's also the second story.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, with all due, you still got, and I know I'm harping on this river running through it, but you're showing on this diagram at the edge of beach grass, which is halfway in the water. So I question, are these numbers correct?
The numbers are all correct. The dimensions are all correct.
As of
That
a certain
edge of
date.
beach grass could be, I'd have to look at that. But if that's the only thing that's changed, everything else is correct. As Chick pointed out, the wetland boundary is accurate. That's what the dimensions are all based off of. The property line is accurate. That's the deeded property line. The elevations were measured. The beach grass, I'd have to look and see what that's from. I honestly didn't.
What the date is.
So I'm not sure where this is going. Is that fundamental to anybody's decision on whether or not we're going to give a permit for this extension with a pool on the roof?
I mean, I have an issue with this. Yes.
I did
I
too.
think the fact that you have an existing fence line to be existing fence to be regraded that's in the water. You've got the property ending on the other side, which is now a public park. The edge
Okay.
of beach grass is in the water. I mean, how true is this really? If you want us to believe that, then how true is the rest of this? And I see where Chick is saying the wetlands, but if you walk that area, I don't know. I have problems with this. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize.
So that
you-
fence is noted on this survey to be removed. It actually already was removed.
Correct.
It's not
There is-
there anymore. So, but because it was on prior versions, it was noted as to be removed. It looks like the beach grass line is from an older survey and just never got turned off. But again, everything else is the current condition. The meets and bounds of the property don't change. The wetland boundary is confirmed by Chick to be accurate. The structures, I mean, you can see it on the overlay. The structures, that's a little off because aerials are not completely vertical. You can see from the shadows. But it's not an inaccurate survey. That one line being removed or not removed from 2010 or who knows when it was, I don't know when it was put on, that there aren't any setbacks from it. There aren't any, measurements from it. It's, yeah, we could remove it, but it really doesn't do anything for the application. The rest of the survey is accurate.
Just to clarify, and in regards to what Lily has brought up, I mean, if you look back, and I don't know whether any of you have the GIS where you can show an earlier base map for the photos, but if you bring up the earlier base maps, you will show that there was land and beach out to where the limit of that property is.
Wow.
The encroachment of the Little Northwest Creek through there is something recent, and it's also something that we're looking to reverse. And maybe Fred can give us an update as to whether we're getting the money for it or not. I wouldn't criticize the survey for showing accurately what the property was at the time it was purchased, and that area that's now water was beach and may again be beach.
Right, and then it may again not be beach. I mean, I think that's, water goes where water wants to go.
Can't really fight Mother Nature. We know that.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, you probably got 2004 up.
All those houses had.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes, so here's 29 Harding. This shows when Little Northwest Creek was much farther north. I believe it was 2006. And juggling a lot of screens here, but
You're doing a good job.
doing my best. And on 2020, this has all been modified and it's much closer and much farther south. But the plan that Kelly showed, at least when I was there, probably a little less than a year ago, I was able to get a good wetland line on the north part of the property, and I believe that's still accurate. And of course, it's an extremely sensitive property based on the fact that there's wetlands on the east side. I will say that I feel it's different than other applications that I've seen, in the sense that this is a very sensitive piece of property. It doesn't meet the sanitary setback. And the fact that the entire property is within 75 feet, to me is not that compelling for an addition on the property. So I think it's a very difficult application. And I think that the direction of the committee at the last meeting was well-founded.
Has everybody on the committee had their chance to say something? Should we look to the public and see if there's any neighbors or anybody from I guess anywhere, who would like to chime in on this?
Yeah,
Doris?
I'm looking right now, Marianne, on the participants list, and I do not see any hands, any raised hands.
Okay. So, Kelly, are you okay with our closing the public hearing at this point?
Yes.
Okay. May I have a motion to close the public hearing? Okay.
I make a motion.
Thank you, Kate. Anybody second that?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, all in favor? Aye, closing the public hearing. All right. So you kind of said it as a double negative, Chick, but I think what you said is that you felt that the committee's previous sort of, summary thought on this was a good one. Is that correct?
Yes, I checked my notes. I think the discussion was that expansion of the footprint would have the potential for adverse impacts and, would be very difficult to meet the requirements of the code. And you encourage the applicant to work within the existing footprint.
So then I think the next step is that we make a motion. Somebody want to make a motion here to approve or disapprove this application?
I make a motion to deny this application.
Okay.
I'm going to second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right. Sorry, Kelly.
That's okay.
Sorry, Kelly.
All right.
And let me just say, at least in terms of my own vote, and Chick, I think, explained this. I mean, as opposed to other applications, we have a situation where basically the entire property violates the setbacks, and I think that's different from a situation where you have only part of the property violating the setbacks, where most of it is within the setbacks. Plus, there's differences in the critical nature of various locations, and I think this is one, as Chick said, which is very critical environmentally, and that we have to take that into account.
And I appreciate that, and we totally did when we were designing this, which is why we had gone so far with all of the the mitigation and water quality improvements and everything. But I appreciate your time, and guys have a good evening, and thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Great.
So for the record, we'll have, the board has directed Chick Voorhees to prepare a final decision, and the next meeting is May 6th.
Okay, so moving on to new public hearings. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing on 14 Cove Road?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Is there somebody here to speak to this application?
Good evening, members of the board. Brian DeSessa, attorney for the applicant, 2462 Main Street, Suite 7, Bridgehampton, New York. If I could screen share, Doris?
Yes.
This is an application for a property located at 14 Cove Road.
Okay, Brian, you're ready.
Thank you.
You're
In
welcome.
Redwood. Screen share now. The board granted an application, an approval for this project on July 8th of 2019. A copy of the decision is up. My client subsequently purchased the property and wished to change the design of the house. Chapter 285 does not allow for an amendment to a previously issued permit in keeping with the same footprint, but when you change stylistic or design wise. So what the applicant did here, under this previous approval, it was a modern house with a flat roof and a lot of glass. The applicant took the previous approvals, we'll get to that, and constructed a more country, I'll call it, style home, not to be the ARB board, which required us in the same footprint that was previously approved by this board, including the house, pool, and patios. The new house required less zoning relief, so we went to the zoning board, amended the relief to get less relief for this project. Went to the architectural review board, had a discussion, and went back and forth with them with respect to stylistic wise, where we resulted in this, and then we're before this board. It's a new application since, again, you don't have amendments to allow for the new home to be situated on the footprint of where the previous approval was. It's a waterfront property at the end, well, right before the end of Cove Road down here is the property at 10 Cove. This is Upper Seg Harbor Cove. And what we did was we took this application, this approval under Chapter 285 and designed a new house stylistically in the footprint of what was previously approved.
So Chick, have you had a moment to compare this application with the permit that we issued a year and a half ago?
I have, yes. It's generally consistent with the parameters that were established at that time.
What do you mean by generally consistent?
I believe it is consistent. I haven't done an actual overlay. And certainly, the applicant can comment on how it may compare, but my judgment is that it's consistent.
So, Brian, what is the difference?
Sure.
We have a new owner and we have a new architect.
That is correct. Yes, new owners, new architects, same landscape designer. So the buffer plan, the landscape plan.
Okay, all right. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to go through the list. My apologies. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Continue.
The buffer plan, the landscape plan, which was done by LaGuardia Design, remains the same. The new owner, we're keeping that in place. So with respect to what you went through last time in terms of planting, that all remains the same. The pool is in the same location. They just shrunk the pool and made a little bit more patio area for usable space in the backyard, not encroaching on that buffer setback. And they added a set of stairs to I can pull that up, let me show you. And I'm happy to send a comparison to Chick. So screen sharing, they added a window well to this side of the building, which was not present on the previous. And the pool was longer in this same orientation and distance. But they made a smaller pool with a attached spa based on the footprint of the previously approved pool. The previous pool was one large pool. Again, same IA system, same driveway, same drainage, same setbacks that you previously approved under the 2019 permit.
What was, July 19.
Yes.
Okay. Right, I think that might be helpful to see a comparison of, what was approved in 2019 versus what you're asking for now, and something that Chick can review.
Yeah, we can lay one over the other. We designed it laying one over the other, so.
I'm trying to screen share if you can see this.
Yep.
And again, a lot of plans flying around. I believe this is the original one that was approved.
That is correct. I'm happy to lay one over the other for you, Chick, if that helps the board. And we did it extensively, so.
Yeah, this is the one that's proposed now. So we can look at, all of the setbacks surrounding it. Again, these are very slightly different scales. This shows 32.1 feet to the corner of this stair and retaining wall feature. This shows a little bit more, 34.8 feet.
So let me ask you, what was there before that we gave all this setback relief? Was there an existing structure there before?
Correct. There's an existing house of approximately 2,000 feet that you could see on the overlay where Chick has up that has, you know, a deck and stairs that are real close to the setback on the.
So what,
Yeah.
I went there today, and what I see today is what was there when the 2019 plan was developed. That predates the new plan, right? Nothing was executed on the basis of the permit.
That is
originally in
correct.
2019.
That is correct. The condition that you reviewed this under for existing conditions in 2019 is the same conditions that exist on the property today.
And where's the footprint? I'm also interested in the comparison between the footprint of the existing structure and deck. And is there a pool now? I didn't notice.
No.
There is not now, no.
All right.
And that it's shown in gray on the newest survey and the old survey.
So it's where it says deck in front of the pool or on the water side of the pool. That's the existing deck.
That's correct. And then if you look to the corner, you'll see another story. The house is basically in the wetlands at this point, and we're retreating it back to the street. And that's what I reviewed the hearings from 19. That's what the board determined by the pullback, the increase in vegetation, in terms of buffer area and increasing the setbacks was the basis of the decision under 285 in 2019.
I can't see second guessing what we did 18 months ago or 20 months ago. Can anybody else on the committee?
No, I mean, I think I think we sent them back a couple times to adjust the pool, the terrace, they reduced all of that.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm not remembering it,
You were
even though I
doing-
walked it today, yeah. Will, Herb, how do you feel? I mean, John, we approved this like, 20 months ago. If we have a side by side that shows it's essentially the same from a footprint point of view,
And
do you have any hesitation?
does this now have an IA system?
The new house that we're proposing has a health department permit for an IA system, correct?
IA system, okay.
Yes.
And it doesn't currently have an IA system. I don't know whether the 2019 had one or not. That was published
did.
before it was
It
required.
did. 2019 did have an IA as well.
Okay.
That's correct.
And we actually had them make the pool smaller in 2019, and yet it's slightly smaller in this version.
Correct. We moved the house a little bit and maintained those setbacks.
And I know you said it has a permit for an IA system. Does that mean you're installing it?
Yeah, yes, if we get the, yes, correct.
Okay.
And on the big sheet, the paper sheet that I have, the swimming pool is between the 50-foot setback and the 75-foot setback.
That's
But it
correct.
doesn't look here, does it?
It is, it's in the same position.
Well, but these paper is, I mean, half the house is between 50 and 70, a quarter of it,
And you're showing the corner of the pool at 48.4.
So those green lines, this green line is the,
The green lines are the setbacks from the wetlands and the red
yeah,
are
so this is
setbacks from the bluff.
50, this is
Yeah.
50 then.
No, it's 48.4 to the corner of the pool.
And what was it in 2019?
I don't have that survey, but Chick does. It
Looks like it's 55.7. Looks like it was slightly greater to that location.
Well, that's like 20%.
Locations-
Yeah.
Other house locations are set back a little bit more.
So that's 50 to 60. We're at 60 now for the house, and that's showing 57 too. I can have the architect write you a letter on that. I'm happy to do that.
I think what we need is a real side by side, both from your architect point
Yeah.
of view, and I'd like Chick to go through it in terms of the setbacks, because it seemed like you were saying that we now have the pool 48 feet from the wetlands, and when we approved it last time, it was 55 feet, which is
55.7. That's a
55.7. So
I'll check with the architect. I'm happy to do that. That's not an issue.
I have questions both for Chick and Fred. And one Chick, is there anything about this proposal that is worse environmentally than the proposal that we approved in 2019?
Well, I think that's where this line of questioning is going, is to make that direct comparison. I see a little bit greater setback for the structure and a slightly lesser setback for the pool.
You said lesser setback? I thought there was a greater setback.
No,
Less.
No,
the pool was 55.7. And it's currently on the new plan shown at 48.4. So that's slightly less. I know that pools are very important to the committee. I don't know if the applicant is able to center it more within the proposed terrace, or, you know, I think the general direction would be to not make anything worse. And if we start getting into comparisons of, you know, is the pool closer and the house setback more, you know, is that beneficial? That gets pretty esoteric, but.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
I'm happy to ask for
wanna make
the
it
May
work.
meeting, and I can provide that to you, so it's a clear conversation and make things a lot easier. I'm happy to ask
Like-
for an adjournment for that.
Yeah, but like
look at.
the 12 Green Street, they had great comparisons. You had great comparisons there.
Different project team, but I will work to get something similar for you, yes.
Yeah, Brian.
I could do it myself, I would, but I would ask for an adjournment to the May meeting, and I will work on that for you.
Was that Fred that said that?
That was not me.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was her.
Okay, so can I have a motion to table this application until May, what is it, May 4th, May 6th?
May 9th, I
Doris?
think.
May 6th.
The next meeting is May 6th, correct?
Okay.
Thank you, Fred.
May I have a motion, please?
And I'll hold
I'll
my
make
question for Fred until May 6th.
Thank you.
You better write it down there, John.
I'm doing.
So who made that motion? I'm sorry.
I did. Herb.
and I'll second it, Lily.
Thank you, Lily.
All
Sorry, my
in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next thing I see here is on the agenda is 68 West Water Street.
Correct.
Is there somebody here to, well, can I have a motion to open the public hearing, please?
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Thank you. Good. I like the tempo. Good. Keep it up. Is there anybody here to speak to, all in favor of opening the public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Is there somebody here to speak for the application of 60 West Water Street?
Yes. Hey, Marianne. Billy Mack, First Coastal, West
Hi,
Hampton
Billy.
Beach, New York. How are you?
Tell us what you want to do.
This is an application for Phragmite remediation that would about 3 times a season or 3 times a year cut the existing Phragmites that are along the shoreline of the Sag Harbor Villas Homeowner Association. That's the condo complex that is just at 68 West Water Street. There's a very narrow band of existing invasive Phragmites that everybody knows are non-native. And we'd like to have a program, or the property owners would like to have a program that would remediate those by hand. And that is typically done. We've gotten other permits in the village for this and in the town of Southampton. We actually have a DEC permit for the same activity. But what it boils down to would be cutting by hand and removing the thatched material from the shoreline. And then it's done 3 times a year. So it's done typically in June, early June, and then August, and then late August, September. And the idea is that you get the plant cut before it goes to seed. And not only does the seed not propagate, but the root system starts struggling. And it's over a period of time, it's the most passive way to minimize the growth and expansion of the Phragmite strand that exists there right now.
So Billy, what have they been doing? Because John Parker, isn't this where you and I were taking a walk and we stumbled across these fellows that were hacking away at this Phragmites a couple years ago?
I was just thinking about the same thing. I believe that's correct. I was going to ask whether they'd stop the illegal cutting.
Correct. You guys did, yes.
Yeah, they did. And they, not only that, but they also did recently did a shoreline restoration that we received a permit from you guys to remove some old concrete that was placed there years ago and replace it with clean sand and plant it with beach grass. And that's doing quite well.
Good.
So this would be a dovetail of that activity to more naturally attend to the shoreline.
So Billy, you're pretty experienced. Do you see these efforts being successful?
Yeah, so there was the last application that you guys did was 71 Glover, and it had a big intrusion of Phragmites on that property, and we have applied the same program to that. That was a little more active. We actually excavated the material and then have hand cut since. But when you do this type of activity, it does take years, 3 to 5 years to actually make a big dent. But it does reduce the strands of Phragmites if you keep this up. Again, it's pretty passive, but it is better than nothing.
Well, I can't imagine what would be more active.
Going in with machines and ripping it up, that would be much more active,
Oh.
which you have permitted before, but that we're not looking for that.
Well, to me, it sounds like, doing this 3 times, that consistent, eradicating effort is what's going to do it more than coming in with machines.
Yeah,
I don't know. Your business, not mine. But
well, we found that it does reduce the root mass strength, which is where rhizomes and the seed product are really what make these things catch on. And if you do that prescribed cutting and remove all of the debris, which is part of the application, then it does start reducing the strength of the plant. And what ends up happening in these shorelines, there's a native banked seed product that starts coming up.
I bet.
And it's wonderful to see.
Oh, it's not seed, Phragmites seed, it's seed.
It's
of
good
something
seed.
else?
Well, it's the good seed that's banked in the shoreline that it can't compete with the Phragmites, but once the ground is exposed without the dense existence of the Phragmite, then the native seed that's banked there starts coming up on its own.
Can I ask a quick Phragmite question? If you go in and rip it out and they say those rhizomes, the roots get loose, can they embed elsewhere?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So you have to capture everything you dig up, is that true?
You got to capture even a root that looks like it's dead could come back to life. It's bizarre.
So the consistent cutting and cutting and cutting of it is the way to go.
And removal.
Yeah.
And what do you do with it when you remove it? Where do you take it?
We have to take it, we put it in a dumpster and take it to an approved site.
Okay.
Nowhere near the water.
Nowhere near the water.
So this must be expensive. Is the co-ops, the whole co-op organization paying for this?
Yeah, and it actually, oddly, it's not terribly expensive. It's a crew of a couple of guys that spend, 3 to 4 hours, 3 times a year to do this.
That's not bad.
It's cheaper than mowing your lawn, that's for sure.
Cheaper than having somebody come to the Harbor Committee and represent them. Any other questions? Is there anybody from the public that has their hand up, Doris?
I will check right now. I don't see.
I have a practical question. Other than not liking to look at Phragmites, that is, I guess, what the client's problem is. What is their objective? Do they want to be able to use the beach?
They want to see the water.
I mean, I suppose that, a view shed, it seems to always be a view obstructor, but it also is spreading. If, if you looked at this property 10 years ago, it wasn't this dense, and left unattended, it will take over. So I think that's their goal.
And which way does it move? Does it move into deeper water or does it move up the bank?
It'll move up the bank. It doesn't care. It goes into the water, and it generally likes the fresher water. So you'll see it, sometimes a hard line on the salt edge, but it'll just get denser and outcompete the natives. And there's bayberry in there, so there's natural beach grasses that are trying hard to hold on.
Okay.
So that's the mean high water? Is that what the dotted lines are?
There's two dotted lines. One's high and one's low. Yeah.
Here's low, here's high.
Right.
Ah, yeah, got it.
All right, Marianne, I don't see any, no hands.
Okay. No further discussion. I think we could take a vote to close the public hearing. Could I have a?
Let me just ask, Billy, did you get a copy of the memo from February 22nd?
Good
There was
question.
a memo prepared. It had a couple of comments. I mean, I'll just say overall, we have permitted activities like this. This is the correct way of a, least invasive or intensive control of Phragmites. The technology is well established and we've done it before. I had a couple of questions and it related to the adjoining properties. You should get a copy of this. Doris, I would think that this would have gone to the applicant because I know
That's correct. I will check the file. I'm pretty sure. it was sent.
I'll dig through the file here, but if you have any specific points that I can comment to, maybe I can do
Sure.
that.
We had asked for, it's kind of what you said before, that, there may be bayberry there. I wanted a characterization of the condition of the existing buffer. Because, as you control the Phragmites, we'd like to see what native plants are there that should be able to help out compete. One of the comments was, is there Phragmites on the ship ashore property to the west and the property to the east, and if there's a root barrier warranted? There was no, we just talked about this, there was high and low water, but not really what we would call a flagged wetland line that we typically look for on wetlands applications. So maybe that could be clarified. We would like at least to talk about the next step and if you'll be planting other species or how you're going to promote native vegetation. I think you would refer to beach grass.
Yeah.
At 12-inch on center, but I wasn't clear on when that would happen. And if you are doing that, we usually look for a survival specification.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
you have the Phragmites, you have the restoration shown here. So the last comment is okay. So let's get you this memo. If the committee does want to move forward with this, I think these are things that we can work up very easily prior to the next meeting, if you're inclined to go forward with it. I don't think there should be a holdup because it's generally a, very well-established project that we would typically approve.
Yes, great. And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to respond to that, or my office didn't get a chance to respond to that. So I'll make sure we get that and address your concerns. Sure.
What we did was we found it sufficiently complete because, there really weren't too many outstanding items.
Mhm.
But we requested that you provide this information prior to the hearing. So
Okay.
definitely
Right.
keep an eye out for those memos. We
All right, very good.
along,
Okay.
try and move things along when there's just minor items.
Chick,
right.
the memo was, just for the record, it was sent to Matt Ivans from,
Oh, he might have been the previous applicant or
correct, Suffolk County Environmental Consulting. So,
Okay, well, that's not First Coastal, but Matt's a good buddy. I'll call him up and tell him to send it to me.
I'll send it over to you, Billy.
Okay,
Okay?
all right, thank you.
The memo was circulated.
All right. Thank you.
So Chick, how should we go forward here?
Well, it's up to you. If you're comfortable, I think that we can easily take care of these minor items between now and the next meeting. If there is anything that can't be dealt with, I guess we can, table it at that point. But if Billy is responsive and we have the plan ready, I would be comfortable preparing a permit for the next meeting if you are so inclined to ask me to do so.
Right. Well, first, let's close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And second, thank you. Did I get a second?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Could I have a motion to direct Chick to write up a permit here for this application, subject to the satisfactory receipt of the requested items?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate the time.
Bye.
We'll send that
Billy.
over to you, Billy.
Oh, thanks, Doris, very much. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. And for the record, the next meeting is May 6th, 2021.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
So the next application we have is 37 Glover Street. Could I have a motion to open the public hearing, please?
Well,
I'm sorry, who made the motion? I just heard. move.
Lily.
Tom Parker.
John. Thank you, John.
Oh,
Second,
Oh, and the rabbit.
was that Herb?
No, that was Lily,
Okay,
but I'm second. I'll be happy to second.
okay. All
Easter
in
Bunny.
favor? Aye.
Sure.
Okay. Is there somebody here to speak to the application for 37 Glover Street?
Good evening, members of the board. Brian DeSessa, 2462 Main Street, Suite 7, Bridgehampton, New York, attorney for the applicant. I could screen share, please, Doris?
Yes, give me a minute. Okay, you're set.
Thank you. The property is located at 37 Glover Street. The applicant's proposing a new 2-story dwelling, detached garage, pool house, and pergola area, as shown on your screen. It is on Sag Harbor Cove, which is identified here. I'll show from the survey. Applicant proposes to install a 50-foot non-fertilization, non-disturbance buffer. All structures are located 75 feet or more landward of the edge of the wetlands line. It meets the lot coverage, meets zoning. We've had a discussion before the ARB. We've obtained approval to demo the existing house there. We haven't obtained final approval. We're working on exterior finishes with the ARB. We went to the zoning board and obtained a variance to locate the pool on the water side, because in the village code, the water becomes your front yard. No dimensional relief was required, and the pool is located 75 feet landward of the wetland. We're installing dry wells for the pool, dry wells to contain all runoff for the site, as well as a new IA septic system. And I see the hours getting later, so I would invite any questions or otherwise. It does meet every requirement and recommendation under Chapter 285.
Chick, do you have any comment?
We did review this. I think that Brian characterized the application correctly. There is a landscape restoration plan. The setbacks are shown, and you can see that the pool conforms to the 75 foot, and the house is beyond that. We did generate a memo dated February 19th, finding this sufficiently complete. And there were just a very few comments that we were looking to have them addressed prior to the hearing. Brian, I don't know if you received that. They were pretty minor.
We did, in my record, my application here indicates that Laura from my office submitted those, and I can follow up tomorrow with her to make sure, but we did submit those.
And let me just double check very quickly. We did receive yes, we received some new materials on March 17th.
Yep, to Eileen, yep.
I believe that is satisfied.
Correct.
was basically to show 2 inches of drainage, provide the planting note, very, very minor things. That's why we determined that this was prepared for the committee. That's why we're here tonight.
Brian, what are you doing about a dock?
There is a dock proposed, so we do have a 4-foot path down to a dock that has been approved by DEC, town trustees, Army Corps. This board is the last for the dock, so it meets the minimum depth requirements, length, width, and the proposed path requirements. The file is big, so I couldn't show it.
And that's part of this application as well?
It is.
Okay,
Yes, we have all the information on that, Herb.
good.
And
Thank
what
you.
Brian said, it's 4 feet wide, it's 66 feet long. There's a ramp to a float, and the float has adequate water depth. It's very typical of other structures that we have seen, and it does conform to the basic parameters that we look for.
And it's a 4x6 float.
And what's the material that it's made out of? It's that see-through?
It is the see-through decking with native hardwood on the posts.
So I'm unclear. What is this? Is this like a courtyard with like a fountain or something in the middle of it?
I'm sorry, where?
Well, if you go from the pool through the house into like a center area there, that's like.
It's a garden area, yes. Yep. Like, because you'd see that through rooms in the house, and it's a quiet area.
Right. Okay, just wondering, just
Yep.
curious.
Yeah.
Any questions from the committee?
I'm concerned a little bit about the proposed lawn, the sodded lawn. Maybe it's fine. Is this something that's going to be sprinklered and, fertilized
Well,
to be beautiful?
outside of 75 feet, the lawn is going to be irrigated, yes.
I'm sure it'll,
Inside of 75 feet, it's not, and there, in the notes, there is temporary irrigation to establish the plantings in the buffer area. We provided notes to the village and Mr. Voorhees' office as to how that would work. But yeah, the lawn outside of 75 feet is to be watered.
So I'm getting my parcels confused, but in one of these places, there was a lovely oak tree. Are any of these trees presently in place? I'm wondering.
Yes, yeah, some of these are in place. That's what we're working on with the ARB to keep as many of the trees as possible in this area. That's what we're going through with them, and we've done some site visits. The first step we did with them was the demo of the existing house to know we could build a new house. They've approved that, and now we're working through some of those details.
I've never seen such a detailed tree thing as you presented here, with the tree 1 and 2 and the pictures of each and where they located.
We want to be very thorough for both this board and the architectural review board
You
wants to know
certainly were.
specifically.
there are a lot of pre-existing trees on that property. I mean, it's a tiny house that's there now.
Yep.
I don't have any more questions. Is there somebody from the public that would like to speak to this application?
I don't see any raised hands at the moment, Marianne.
It's so simple. It feels like we're not working.
I can get one of those once in a while. I need that.
Can I get a motion if everybody agrees to close the public hearing?
I so move.
Second, please. Come on, second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So no outstanding issues, right, Chick?
Correct.
So,
Everything addressed.
yeah, so could I get a motion to direct Chick to draw up a permit for this application, please?
I so move.
Thank you. And second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good.
Thank you.
All right.
Marianne, I don't get demerits or anything for helping to move things along and offering to make motions, right? That doesn't count against me in any way.
No, I wish you'd
Okay.
do it even faster and more often.
Okay, all right, good. Just wanted to be
Okay.
sure.
So for the record, we'll have the Chick to prepare the final decision, May 6, 2021.
And now we have 18 Bluff Point Road.
Correct.
Good evening, members of the board. Brian DeSessa.
You have
attorney
to
for the
open the
applicant.
hearing.
Okay, I need to open the public
Oh,
hearing.
sorry.
May I have a motion to open the public hearing, please?
I'll move.
Make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor, thank you. Is there somebody here to speak to the application of 18 Bluff Point Road?
Yes, Brian DeSessa, 2462 Main Street, Bridgehampton, New York, attorney for the applicant. I will screen share. The subject property is located at 18 Bluff Point Road in Sag Harbor, on Upper Sag Harbor Cove. Applicant acquired the property in approximately, I think it was 2015. Let me pull up this will make it easier. The area in question, so this is Upper Sag Harbor Cove, Bluff Point Road, wetlands wrap the property. So it's two sides, kind of a peninsula here on that. And the area in question is this deck area, which is on grade, which is landward of this existing bulkhead, that in approximately 2016, the applicant receiving poor advice reconstructed this deck area and expanded it, not knowing that a permit was required from this board or a building permit. The issue came to light in late 2018, early 2019, with the issuance of a violation for a fence that was, you see down here, a wire fence that's 8 feet in height, and a 4-foot fence on this side, which was a code violation. And then when we started to look into the file, we ascertained that all the things had, aside from this deck, had been done properly, but the deck was constructed without the benefit of a permit or approval at an at-grade deck. I inquired of the applicant as to how that got there. He had hired a professional to do it. The professional had indicated that an at-grade deck did not require a permit and that you were landward of a bulkhead, both of which the applicant understands now to not be the case, not be accurate, and we're here. So the property currently has no established buffer, wetlands buffer, covenants and restrictions or anything like that. So the plan from Summerhill Landscaping, which has been provided both in a specific planting form as to the native numbers of plants and the species of plants, has been reflected here on this survey as the area in which the applicant is proposed. Well, the applicant is seeking two things. The applicant is seeking to legalize this previously done construction and to establish this is a wooded area, so no change here. This would be part of the covenant should we move forward, and the applicant is proposing to a non-disturbance area all the way the length of the property running all the way down and increase the plantings with a revegetation and buffer. So right now this property has lawn all the way down to the dotted line if you visited the property.
So where's the IA system, Brian?
There currently is not an IA system, but if that's a recommendation of the board, I am happy to bring that back to the applicant.
Well, I flipped that off pretty quickly,
Yep.
but yeah, I think that might be.
Yeah, that's not unexpected. So yeah.
I visited this property and I'm totally blanking out on it right now.
It's a huge lawn. I've never seen a lawn that big on the water, so it's quite impressive.
Behind a fence, though, most of it. It's a huge.
Yes, it is. Yes.
The house that you see is only a small thing, and then it just goes and goes and goes.
Correct.
Water.
So Chick, what are your feelings, thoughts, findings?
Well, it's a very large moderately large existing dwelling. There really are not many structural improvements proposed other than what's been done without proper authorization. And as was observed, there is an extensive lawn that will be managed much better from an environmental standpoint. Certainly an IA system would be a huge benefit if that can be arranged. It's not currently shown on the plan. But there really isn't that much to comment on. I mean, yes, it's within setbacks. No, it does not have a 50-foot existing natural buffer. But I think we're kind of managing the site as well as we can, given the current condition.
You say that it meets setbacks, but your memo here in the agenda says it does not meet.
No, I'm saying it does not.
Yeah, oh,
Does not meet. But it's, you know, it's an existing house that it's pretty obvious what's there.
so are we getting, how are we doing this buffer? Are we doing like a standard 50-foot buffer? Are we doing like, you know, adding up all the square footage and doing an equivalent kind of thing?
It's-
How are we doing this?
It's an equivalent. I can provide you with those numbers because in this
Yeah.
area, we were hoping to maintain some usable lawn area around the pool. If you look, the 50 feet comes into the pool. House was obviously constructed under previous codes.
Can you use your cursor? Your cursor is really small. I lose it because it's kind of a
Yep.
busy picture.
So this lot where I'm going in the
Yeah.
pool is where 50 feet is.
Okay, all right.
I don't
So-
think you're gonna get an average equivalent of 50 feet.
No, we can't get the total. We gave, you know, we're proposing 5,579 square feet.
Right.
And what would it be?
What would it be if it was 50? I could calculate, but it's more than half the
And it
lot.
would go into the house.
Yeah.
Right, because it's not, right. So
It's-
that's
this-
not going to happen, but if it's like 50 feet, what would that calculation be?
I can run that. I don't know if we could ever get there with the amount of property, but I can run that for you.
So what is the hospital
If-
green down there at the bottom?
This?
Yeah,
So that area is a proposed non-disturbance, non-fertilization area. And then inside of that is a proposed revegetation area. So we would let, this is currently being mowed and manicured. We would let this grow back naturally, which is adjacent, and then plant behind it to augment it.
so
Removing the fencing.
why wouldn't the solid green be the green hatch, which is non-disturbance, non-fertilized, to give us more buffer?
It is. It's just two types. The white and green stripes, if you will, we're proposing to let it regrow naturally. And the heavy green is where we're going to plant it, all of which is the buffer.
Okay,
And we're adding dry wells to contain, manage our rainwater runoff. And I'd be happy to speak to the applicant about the installation of an IA system.
and can you tell us what the dimension is from the edge of the pool to where your plantings start? How much that's a lot of lawn. That pool is like 40 feet, so that's like 40
So-
feet.
I can get you that dimension. This, if you've been to the site, is not at grade. So this is sufficiently elevated. So it's not like there's lawn off of here.
Wouldn't that encourage more runoff of nitrogen from a fertilized lawn? Is it possible to get a little bit more under where it says existing lawn to be removed in the white area, keep pushing up and encroaching with native species?
I can ask that, absolutely.
Well, you know, I was there and I'm pulling a total blank. But so as you're moving from the pool towards the wetlands, right there where you are. So
Yep.
there's the first, is that decking that's there? Is the pool sitting in a deck?
The pool is sitting up on an elevated deck.
Okay.
Elevated slopes.
And then after that, what happens?
What's the drop off?
There's a drop off, and this is like a hill on an angle
Right,
with lawn, and then we're proposing the buffer to start there.
right. But coming down the other direction, I'm just wondering why, if it's, you know, all land on an incline, why we're not just putting all native plants in there? They're
Well,
not.
this
gonna
is the only flattened area here, so this is the only area where there's you'd have usable yard space.
Well, what about to the other side of the swimming pool?
Here,
Nope, the other side.
Correct. There, yeah.
And all the way up by the stone patio, that's usable grass, right? Lawn?
a lot of this is wooded, but I can bring some pictures and talk to the applicant about seeing if they could do more.
I think they need to do some more.
Okay.
I agree with you, Mary.
And I'll talk about the IA system, because obviously that's a big.
Yeah, and I will
plus,
go
so.
back and refresh my memory because I'm just pulling up a blank.
Sure.
This may help. This is the existing property, so that
Listen,
between
all wooded.
the pool and the road is pretty heavily wooded now. But you can see the lawn through this area that will be removed and replanted, as well as the areas over here. I mean, my basic question is what's being proposed? I mean, is it just to keep a deck that was installed that
Yes.
did not have permits?
Correct. That's what we're asking for.
So I guess the Harbor Committee could say, well, you didn't get a permit for the deck, it doesn't belong there. Should that be removed? Is one factor. But, certainly from the standpoint of environmental benefit, the removal of the lawn and the installation of native buffer is a pretty substantial factor. But I just wanted to characterize it.
Yeah,
Right.
and
To keep a
the
deck
removal of the deck,
that was put in.
the removal of the deck wouldn't, if the applicant were to remove the deck, then no buffer gets installed or IA system or otherwise. So I think
I know.
we don't want to do that.
That's-
I'm not saying we want to do that. We're trying to
So-
work with everybody and not do the wrong thing.
Kate, you're like a good, and Lily, you're really good tree people. So are those like really valuable trees that are there between the road and the house? Can we have the picture back up again?
Oh,
I
sure,
have-
sorry.
I mean, they provide really nice screening.
Yeah, it's so it's very well screened.
Any tree is a good tree. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see it, so I've Google Earthed it, so I'm not familiar with the variety. It looks like you've got some cedars and I don't know what else.
Keeping
But
trees is good. Well, I
any
don't care
tree
what,
is a good tree.
it's not dead.
Yeah,
Agreed.
it's just a matter of whether or not there's any play because we'd like them to put more buffer there because they are right there at the tippy point of this peninsula. Everything, you spill a cocktail sitting around that swimming pool, it's in the water.
I
right?
agree.
I will
with you.
say, I'm sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
That's all right, no.
No, I will say that because the trees are there, you may be able to establish shady ground cover in place of lawn. And
Yes.
not really like it's usable yard. You're not going to throw a baseball there if there's all these trees. So, it may be something that Brian could look at with the applicant and establish some shady ground cover that removes lawn in those areas and not
Shady
hamper the
ground
use of the
cover
property.
already.
That counts as buffer, more buffer, right?
Yes.
Right.
But I mean, why should, they built, the deck was built illegally. Then why are you using as a sort of a bargaining chip?
Well, the applicant wants to keep the deck and we're trying to legalize it. If the board were to say, no, you have to remove the deck, then we would remove the deck and not install any buffer.
Isn't that the jurisdiction of the building department? I don't know how we can.
Well, if you didn't approve it, I wouldn't be able to legalize it.
Because
Well,
if they
I
wanted,
would say, I would say
No.
that's not our purview. I would say that's a building department. That's a violation. of the
no,
building
well, if they came in and they wanted to build a deck right now, they'd have to come to us.
Right, no, I understand that, but this is in violation without a permit. I don't know
So
how,
we're-
help me
We're
out.
giving them- We're giving them an after the fact permit for the deck that they went and built, but we're gonna make it like it's coming in de novo.
I think the question Will's asking, which to me is a good one, is how did they get a building permit for a deck that didn't have harbor
We
committee?
didn't have one.
They didn't have one. They never got one. They
Well,
built it
they
at
never
grade.
got a building permit.
No,
Yeah, but-
no.
They did, the previous owners,
No, they just built it.
Okay,
the previous,
they
how did they get a
couldn't-
CO? I mean, whatever, to
You
change.
can't get a CO if it's not been approved. So they obviously
Right.
built it illegally.
Right.
Correct.
so I'm sure the building department will be involved in this as well, but separate and apart.
They're already involved. We're working with them on this. That's why we
Okay.
came here.
So does the building department say to you, I mean, we're not privy to the whole conversation, but do they say, well, we will defer to the harbor committee on the efficacy of the deck?
No, because to get a building permit, if this was a proposed deck, I'd have to come here first, get
Right.
your approval, then go to the building department to get a permit.
Yeah.
So I have to, even if it's an as-built situation, which we were issued a violation for, we now have to come here to see if we can legalize that as-built. And then if we were able to, we would then move on to the building department for a building permit.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're just here to attempt to legalize this structure. You know, violations are something that, you know, and I'm assuming one was issued here.
Correct.
But, you know, that's, you know, violations and, you know, the court side of this goes through the building department. You know, we would simply look at this, the Harbor Committee would look at this simply as, you know, and apply the standards
Right.
basically as if it weren't there. I mean, we're just looking at this like we would any other application, but it happens to be built, but they still have to meet the standards. And, you know, that's what they're attempting to do.
So I think, Brian, what we need is a calculation of what the buffer would be. 50 feet back from, you know, the mean high water line all the way around that end of that property. And
Maybe we should give them suggestions where to put the IA system too.
No.
I think they can figure that out.
We have to put it up here because this is the farthest point under the driveway. If we were to put it somewhere, otherwise we're close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also, I don't think you should consider the under the tree area additional wetland area, or, you know, by planting something underneath it, there's probably pre-established growth there.
Well, let's see. It might be a good idea to put like something that's actually like buffer material underneath those trees.
But I could make that area part of the covenanted buffer area so that even existing vegetation would be protected.
Right.
Then you're losing lawn space. I mean, you're gaining more lawn space if you do that, but.
No. Well, let's go see what it looks like. But I think the message to your client is like, yeah, we want to work on this, and no, there's no point in blowing up your deck. But yes, we'd like an IA system, and we really want to maximize the buffer.
Sure.
It's a really delicate piece of property. Anybody else have a comment on that? Okay, anybody from the public have a comment?
I do.
Hi.
Hi, hold on.
This is a family affair tonight.
The family affair. So I'm Allison Babcock. We live across the street. And I just want to say, I'd like to see more of a buffer. There was also some clearing that happened down here by the, you know, where that lawn is over the years. And I know that, you know, a lot of people in the neighborhood, we all try to work with the Harbor Committee and try to do the right thing and install buffers. And, you know, it took us 4 years to get, you know, a permit to replace an existing bulkhead. And, you know, I think he needs to do the right thing here. And a little part of me feels like he did sort of know what he was doing when he put that deck in. And, you know, we all spend a lot of time and money trying to go through the right channels and processes, and, you know, paid to have our border re-vegged twice after, you know, once when we moved in, another time when we put the bulkhead in. And I just, you know, it's upsetting to me when I see people taking shortcuts.
So you've heard this discussion. Is there something that you feel the Harbor Committee should be asking for that we're not?
Well, I mean, I think that that green lawn didn't always exist there when the McMullins lived there before. I think that it was added on to, and there were trees cut. And I think that, you know, that area down by the pool, it is a sloping lawn that goes into the water. And I don't see why that can't also be re-vegged.
Well, I think that's kind of what we're asking.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, you know, maybe go take a look at it and see what you think. But I just think that, you know, in fairness to others of us that live on the cove and we try to do the right thing and install the buffers, that, you know, he also needs to do a little more than, you know, a skinny little buffer.
Well, I think we're headed in the same direction.
Okay, I just wanted to, you know, bring that up.
Right.
Thank you.
Good point. I just was curious at the site. What is the little cutout there? What's the history of that? Was that somebody's attempt at making a little marina?
Oh, that was, yeah, that was a boat. Well, this whole area, it's actually sort of interesting.
Stretched.
Right, they tried to develop it back, you know, right before the Depression. I think it was called like New Tacoma down by the shore. And all of these parcels, there were like 300 of them. And they had basically, we have a brochure somewhere, but like, you know, all of these properties here were cut, you know, like our property was three lots. And there was the beach over here by Long Pond Lane. But anyway, they, we have the brochure. It's sort of fascinating to read because if anybody who knows Sag Harbor Cove or the Sag Harbor history is they were claiming that it was near all the latest chain stores. You could walk to them in the village of Sag Harbor. But anyway, then the Depression hit and, you know, it never got developed, thankfully. But yes, that was a boat basin right there. And we actually had another boat basin in front of our house, but there was an island there. When you look at the map, sort of.
Is that used as a put-in point? Do people use that for access to the water?
You know, this little area here where the arrow is a little, you can put a boat in there. A lot of people put kayaks and paddle boards and stuff.
Public road right there.
Public access point. We call it John.
Here's 59 John Street that you mentioned earlier today.
Right.
Here's that connection to this. Point.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, I'm going to bring something else up now that we're on the call because we walk here a lot. This area across the house from the one that my husband was talking about, somebody has been clearing that area.
Where are we talking about?
Where this arrow is. Sorry.
Oh, I'm
right
sorry.
here. Sorry, your
Over
arrow.
here?
No, down across the street where the marsh is. Right here. Yeah.
Someone's clearing that?
Here along John Street. Every time I go by there, there's more and more sunlight that comes in. Nope, on John, turn the corner. Go west, like here over to here. Every time I go by there, there's more and more vegetation gone. I'm just bringing that up.
Well,
I don't
whose
know.
property is that?
I don't know who it belongs to. It might just be street property, but
It's not, it belongs to the owner on the other side of the pond.
okay. All right. I don't know if you can take that out, but it's, you know, it's much less dense than it used to be. So just bringing that up. This is what
A
happened.
water view thing? They want a water view or something.
Is that 55 John or 59 John?
It is not.
I don't know the number.
It is not, I can tell you that.
Okay.
You can see the house is back here.
Right.
That's
What's,
I don't know which house.
is that off Halsey?
No, this is John Street. Oh, I don't know where the house
I know,
is.
but where
It's
that-
on John Street, where it's like a lot of the vegetation is very.
Can I just ask that this be adjourned to May 6th? I'm sorry, you guys can chat. I'm
That's
just,
Havens Lane. But yeah, I think we're a little off track.
yeah, I'm sorry. It's getting late. I got another thing to do. I apologize.
All right.
May I have a motion to close the public hearing? Are you all right, Allison?
Yeah,
Did you
I'm
get your
good.
thing?
Thank
Okay.
you.
I think
Yeah,
an adjournment, Marianne, I asked for.
Well, I'm closing the public hearing. Aren't we closing the public? No, we're not closing the public hearing. Are
Oh,
we?
there's outstanding questions.
Okay. All right. So can I have a motion to table this application until the next May 6th, is it?
Thank you.
Okay. Can I have a motion for that, please? A motion, please, to
I make,
table.
oh, no, I can't.
I'll make the motion close.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. So the next item we have on the agenda is correspondence requiring action. And this is an application at 152 Hampton. I think it says road, but I think it's Hampton Street. And we have a lead coordination issue here. The planning board has asked to be lead agency on this. I don't know what the issues are here. I certainly don't mind somebody taking the lead on this, I don't think. Fred or Chick, are you aware of what the issue is here?
I honestly don't know myself. I'm
Yeah, I
hoping.
don't know what the project is.
Well, I don't, You know, the only reason I have any hesitation, I mean, this is a planning board, so that's really different. If it were the ZBA or the ARB, I'd go like, wow, we've just ended up in these sort of rabbit holes because, you know, things have gone, you know, 90% of the way before Harbor Committee gets involved. I don't know what 152 Hampton Road, Hampton.
It's next to the
Doris
gas
sent
station.
me- Here's the
It is.
memo from the planning board, and there must be some attachment.
Yes, there is. Thank you.
So Doris, I saw you sent this to me at 4:20 and I didn't realize you sent it. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So there is an environmental assessment form.
Yes.
I don't know if there's a plan. I'm just looking at this for the first time, so bear with me.
That's fine. Please do. But this is the gas station. This is Harbor Heights.
Next
No.
door.
Door.
Next to, adjacent to the gas station.
North or south, do we know?
South.
So is it crowding into Eastville? Do I have my geography right?
Across the street from Eastville, yeah.
It's that barn shape.
Yeah, there's a large barn there.
It used to be a
Yeah.
furniture
Yes.
refurnishing place, and they had a spill there years ago, and
Okay. Okay.
but he wants to put it into houses, or, I mean, in retail stores or something?
Why would we even get it as a review committee?
Well,
You-
that's a mystery, isn't it?
Here it is. Do you have that project description, Chick?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to look at the aerial photograph, which is up
Okay.
now. I don't see any wetlands, just
Yeah.
a quick look.
No.
Wetlands within a couple of 100 feet or more.
Well, you know, it's surprising because like there's the Schiavone structure that's back there on Germain, and there were wetlands there. So sometimes.
Who's
if this
doing
is a
that?
Just a minute. If this is a really deep lot, there could be wetlands back there.
That whole back area is technically wetlands.
Looking for the project description. It says it's attached.
Yes, just keep further down, keep going,
Okay, thank you.
right there.
There we go. Property was vacant. McCree constructed the existing building. It's used for repair and refurbishing of furniture.
I think there is wetlands back there. I think Lily's right.
I kayaked there after Sandy, actually,
Yeah, I
in
lived
the
over there.
parking.
Do we have any surveys here that shows staked wetlands?
I'm opening that if we have a moment here.
There's a title, a water level chart. I don't have.
Here we
it.
go.
Apologize.
Here we go.
So Marianne, while Chick is working on that survey, the planning board initiate the SECRA review, a State Environmental Quality Review Act. And you were one of the involved agencies, the ARB board, the ZBA, the trustees, and the planning board wants to assume lead agency. So they're doing their coordinating review, SECRA lead agency coordination, basically.
This is the state DEC wetlands map. The site is here. And there are no DEC designated wetlands anywhere near.
Are you showing a screen with drawings on it? Because all we're seeing is text.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hang on.
I feel like if you look at a water table chart,
How's that?
That's it. That's a map. What are we looking at?
So the property's here. Okay, 152 Hampton Road, Steve Loeffler. And as I zoom out, it's all houses all around it. I don't know where you're kayaking, Lily.
Oh, I thought you said behind Scavoni's. I'm sorry.
No. That was somebody else mentioned that as a.
No. I was
Well,
kayaking.
I was just
So
saying
as I
that there was,
zoom out, the nearest wetlands are way to
Oh,
the,
yeah.
way far away.
I'm getting the feeling that they just sent the EAF to every agency in the village.
I think
Right.
so too, Fred. I don't think there's any real issue for the Harbor Committee here. I don't want to jump the gun, but from everything we're seeing, there's.
okay, so can I get a motion to allow the planning board to become lead agents?
Make that motion.
Thank you. Second,
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right,
Great, thank you.
great. Do we have any really quick items? I have a few, but does
Really?
anybody else have a few items? All right, so one, I sent you all a map that Chick had sent me, and it showed that Sag Harbor's parcels, the Sag Harbor Village owned parcels. I still have this bee in my bonnet about trying to designate an alternative, better, not perfect, but better site for snow removal. Because I sent out the idea of where I thought it would be better, and I got like zero. Well, I think I sort of got a response from Lily, but I would like you to look at it because I would like the Harbor Committee to make a recommendation because we're presently, that snow is banked is just horrible. All right, so we don't have time to review that now, but I would really like to do that in May, please. The other thing, I didn't really understand, John, you put a quote in there about the Haven Beach IA system, and it really didn't say what the engineer found. So they're going to go ahead and do drawings before anybody sees where the groundwater is. Did you understand that? Or Will, did you understand that better than I did?
No, and I was very upset that there was no real information. And furthermore, just to follow up, I would like to have people look at what Dr. Gobler presented as a alternative to the IA system, because I think what he's doing is quite interesting. And I have strong opinions about an IA system as we know it at Havens. And I just want to clarify that we have vote on this at some point before it gets done.
Well, I'm not sure that the system that he has would work there better because what you have where you've got that comfort station in front of it, which is gravity, is asphalt. And I don't know that you can put a large wood chip leaching field. I don't know.
That's why we need to look at the engineering.
Well, I would think so. But I think it would be great to have somebody find out what kind of dimensions you need for one of those wood chip nitrogen, removing systems.
I would like to run.
Can you can go up to the Center for Clean Water Technology, CCWT. They're the ones that are working on that. There's a fellow named Frank Russo there, who's like the assistant director. He's kind of like hop along to Chris Gobler.
Yep.
And you might be able to find out what kind of minimum dimensions you need for one of those systems.
Okay, let's do this offline. I'll follow up with that. And we can.
Okay. The other thing is, and I just checked my email, I don't have an answer, but just a heads up, with this whole dredging of Little Northwest Creek, I attended a webinar on the horseshoe crab. And I learned a lot about horseshoe crabs, but I also learned that they are really getting pounded. And it occurs to me that that might be one of the nesting grounds, Little Northwest Creek. So I wrote to Mike Bottini. If anybody else has another idea, but it just sort of heads up, fair warning, because I know a lot of you are, not a lot, but some of you are attached to the idea of dredging Little Northwest Creek. And I think we need to have like some evaluation of what the wildlife is going to go through.
The horseshoe crab put their eggs on the beach between the creek and the Barcelona Point. They don't do it in the creek. You do see horseshoe crab there. So there's probably some percentage of horseshoe crab eggs in the creek. The disconcerting report from Gobler was that that creek is more polluted than any other place in Sag Harbor, and it's not from humans, it's from birds. And if it's not fleshed out, that's going to be very disappointing. And it may get fleshed out and become a problem again, but
Well, the horseshoe crab, they also lay their eggs in the water, from what I heard. So it's not just on the sand. It's kind of an interesting thing, and I could not give you a full, reputable kind of analysis of that. But I thought it was worth going to a naturalist who might have something to say.
I'd be glad to talk to Mike about it.
Do you know him?
Yeah,
Good. I don't really know him. I just got his email address.
I don't know.
And also about terrapins. What are we doing to terrapins? Let's just cover our bases and be responsible.
Fair
in
enough.
terms of all, and then, so Will, you and Lily, maybe 6 months ago, we're going to start putting together a spreadsheet of all these properties that promise that they're going to be doing buffers.
Yeah, we
And
wanted to
having-
do that when the plants start turning green. So it's
Things just slowly greening up. So we'll speak with Doris and get that ball rolling.
Well, you've got a lot of work to do before you go out to a site and look. I mean, you have to like organize all these things and find out when they got their COs and put a
Yep.
spreadsheet together.
Yep.
There's a lot of work before you leave, the building department. So, but okay, good. I'm glad you haven't forgotten about that. All right.
Mary, can we go back for a second? You were talking about Havens Beach and the rest area. And by the way, all I did is get a report from the Natural Resources Department in East Hampton. I just said, "Can you give me an update?" And that's what I had. When I was talking to Will earlier, we had mentioned that it seemed to me that Dr. Gobler's new system, is that being put was being put in someplace in Sag Harbor? It seems like, was it over near the park at the entrance?
Mash Mewett, right.
And so I don't know whether he'd be interested in doing it some other place in Sag Harbor or not, but.
So what they have is they need to have 8 examples, and they have their 8 examples now, and they need like a year's worth of results to present to Suffolk County. So I don't think they're looking for any new spots. I think they have their 8, including Mash Mewett Park. And then they're thinking that it'll probably be like June of 22 before they're going to actually have a report on the results to take to Suffolk County to see if they can get approval.
Okay, thank you for that.
And then they'll be open to the public to buy, correct? Is that correct?
If Suffolk County approves
them
of their results, yes.
The
But I think
idea-
there's a big question as to how much space it takes up. Is it more, is it less? I don't know, maybe Chick. I'm thinking about putting an IA system under my driveway, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I should wait and do one of these systems. So I have a very personal interest in your finding out, Will, as to how much space these things take up. But whatever.
And how much is it going to cost?
Well, it's all going to cost money, it's.
Well, wouldn't that be a prime CPF water quality fund project?
Yes, it's so ripe for the right thing.
I think that would be a great one. I mean, the CPF has something like $294 million in the bank.
Well, Lily, they're already talking about putting an IA system, which Will doesn't want over there, and that would be CPF money probably. So
And it will be, because I don't, okay.
Okay.
Yes, we're talking about the approval. The approval was through CPF water quality funds
Correct.
as an East Hampton town project.
But isn't one of the issues, though, the groundwater levels?
Well, that's an issue that the engineer is looking at. I mean, we can't say whether the engineer is going to say it's a big problem or a little problem. I mean, he's in the process of working on it. That's what we know.
But Gobler did say that whatever we did in Sag Harbor for Havens for that straight run of a dump is sump or whatever you call it is just not working. I mean, that's just not.
And that's another issue.
That's
Yes.
another issue.
And I could, if it wasn't after 8 o'clock, I could give you 10 reasons why it's not working, but I won't.
All right. So what we really need, to the point that any of you have power and influence, is we need CPF money, $52,000 to do this master plan for the Havens Beach watershed. which would go from Little Northwest Creek to Cor Maria and everything north of 114. So, cross your fingers, light candles, et cetera, because we could then take kind of charge, because it's all the stormwater. I got like this heated email today about how can we let dogs run when, Gobler's report shows all this, dog poop in the drain. Well, no. So.
No, but would it be a good idea also, though, to just post the results so people can see them?
They're on the website.
But I mean, put them in plastic or, laminate the suckers and post the chart down there. So when I'm there with my dog and I am a responsible dog owner that picks up after it, I can see that and it'll register.
Lily, what the
No
dog
one reads.
park, pardon me if I'm wrong, but the dog park, you go from the dog park, there is a berm that goes up before you go into the drain. So the dog poop in the dog park is not going into the drain.
Oh, no, I know that. And I see what is there and what's not, and it's not too bad. I mean, most owners scold.
No, it's not.
No, it's not that, but I'm just saying for general education. But
Well,
that's
if you want to take that on, be my guest.
But I think part of
I
the
don't
part of the
mean to
point.
be flippant, but I mean, which of those, I can't think of a single graph that in isolation would be self-explanatory.
I thought there was a pretty good one, but I'll go back and I'll look at the presentation and pull it out and send it to you.
I have to leave. My
Thank you for the
apologies.
suggestion.
Yeah, I think, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Good night.
Good night.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
Fred
Night.
voted.
Have a
Bye,
good
guys.
night.
Take
Night.
care,
Thank you,
everyone.
Doris. Thank you.
Thank
Mary.
you.
Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
wonderful evening.
Thank you, you too. Good night, John.
Good night.